102.5.
Exactly 3 days to Christmas, and you can see from the headlines, the various newspapers, that there's been shopping going on, but whether it is working for us is another issue altogether. I want to welcome you to another edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, and I am hoping that your Christmas is looking better than mine, because if it was looking the same, I'll be very worried, because my name is Sana Nombo. Show is produced by Patrick Asford Boedu and is sponsored by TT Brothers, Kulun Ghana Limited, Franco Trading Enterprise, and also by Muba Water. And I'll be sharing some messages from them with you pretty shortly. A big thank you to you wherever you are listening to us from. Aside the fact that you're listening to us, we are always grateful to share with yourself and the rest of the world what you think on the issues we'll be discussing today. And of course, today we'll be discussing some of the issues that made the headlines in the media this week. And we'll be having our very knowledgeable partner is sitting and digesting these issues and stating their opinions on some of the things that we have seen. And I'll be introducing them pretty shortly. But we are live on a number of affiliates across the country. We are still trying to keep track of exactly which networks we are on at this time. It would be very nice if some of the networks which are carrying us can just get in touch and indicate to us that we are carrying you, so that we can acknowledge the fact that you are giving us a wider reach. We are live on Diamond FM 93.7 in Tamale. We are live on Sekpele 104.3 in Likpe, Radio Kwando 102.5 in Kwando, Lukusi Radio 96.1 is in Vergo Lokwati, Shine FM 96.9 is in Akachi, Radio Kitan 95.7 is in Saboba, GFM Radio in London. And you can listen to us anywhere you are in the world. And I know a lot of you are using that platform as we speak right now through the internet of RadioGold905.com. And you can use that. And a lot of you too are using, our Facebook platform, PAP MCGH. When the discussion starts, you actually be able to watch it live. And so you can use that platform. For a lot of you who have indicated that you're interested in watching our discussions as it goes on. But before I move on to the headlines in the newspapers, I just want to indicate to you that the vehicle fair has started today. It is for today and tomorrow. And if you're seeking to sell or buy a car, be it used or brand new or registered, visit the Ghana Trade Fair Center today, 22nd, and tomorrow, 23rd of December 2018, to partake in the Vehicle Fair 2018. We will exhibit well-known brands of cars for you to choose from. Also available will be various spare parts on display. Now, so go to the trade fair today and you have the opportunity to buy yourself a car, whether brand new or registered. Don't forget the Vehicle Fair 2018 is brought to you by buyoneonone.com. Buyoneonone.com, where properties sell fast. So if you want to buy a vehicle, brand new or used, just go to the trade fair today, and you have vehicles offered to you at very affordable prices. You can also get the opportunity to sell one if you have one that you intend to sell. And let me share with you what's on the front pages of the newspapers for today. And let's start with the Spectator newspaper. And the banner headlines: traders lament over low Xmas sales. And also Xmas New Year messages from the pulpit. We wish our readers Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. That's on Spectator. And they are also indicating that your weekend companion will be back on the newsstand from Saturday, January 5th, 2019, which means the Spectator is taking a break after today. The Ghanaian Times has EC set for referendum to create 6 new regions. President appoints new military chiefs. President elevates Bosa North to district to municipal. President elevates Bosa North district to municipal status. Court order seizure of men's gold property in Kumasi. That's also on the front page of the Ghanaian. Those are on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. And Daily Guide has Men's gold troubles deepen. Nam1 missing. Court orders sale of properties. And also Nana appoints new service commanders. Ropa coming. MPP opens nomination for a Jako seat. And then Nana Akomia finds love at last. Finally, the Daily Graphic has Accra under siege by Xmas shoppers, but traders say sales are low. Government initiatives put more money in people's pockets. President, 3 appointed to military high command. Committee to review Ghana's culture policy inaugurated. So those are on the front pages of the Daily Graphic newspapers. So you can get any of those papers if you're interested in any of the stories and read them out for yourself. If you just join us once again, you're on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. My name is Sena Nombo. Show is produced by Patrick Asford Boedu. And it's live on RadioGo905.com. We'll be live on Pub MCGH. And the major issues we'll be discussing for today, we are talking about that expose on the foreign affairs and regional integration about concerning the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration in Oslo. Now, the minority has indicated through its spokesperson on foreign affairs that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs attempted or was in the process of buying a 6-bedroom apartment to convert into a chancery in Oslo, Norway. And the amount involved was $12 million. Now, the minority's problem was that as of last year, that same house was traded for $3 million. And so it is jumped significantly by a whopping $9 million. Now, the ministry came out and indicated that they, after the issue was raised on the floor of Parliament, that they had actually put it on hold and that they've decided against making the purchase. Now, the last time we spoke to the Foreign Affairs, the minority spokesperson of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, indicated to us that there are still indications that there are works ongoing on that particular apartment to suit the specifications that have been given by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. So the indication may be that they haven't given up on that purchase, or they haven't indicated to the owner that they are withdrawing their interest in the apartment. So we'll be discussing that issue and the president's response to the call for a probe that will be instituted by him. He basically has dismissed that he's not interested. He thinks the whole call is flimsy and that because the agreement never took place, there's no need to institute a probe and that there's an agenda to malign his government. And talking about the president's response, the second issue we'll be discussing has to do with the media encounter he had with the press. Now, a lot of people are angry because he spent over 40 minutes delivering a speech and then gave the press 15 minutes to ask a few questions. I think he took about 12 questions and then he decided that he had had enough and closed everything. So we're talking about that media encounter and the impressions of our panelists about it. You can also share with us what you think about what happened in that media encounter. We'll also be discussing the latest on the lead up to the presidential primaries of the National Democratic Congress, because aspirants are filed. As we speak now, we have seven actually. We have 7 persons filing to contest, and there's also an interim injunction on any processes leading to the primary. So the NDC has put whatever it was going to do on hold. They were actually going to do a vetting before the year ends, but as it is now, they will be unable to do that. They have to wait and go back to court and get that overturned before they can continue with the primary. So we'll be speaking about that development too, and the fact that the pack is virtually set. We know those who are contesting for the primaries. And joining us to discuss these issues today will be Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, Member of Parliament for Northern and Ranking Member of Foreign Affairs Committee. Professor Nino Idowona is a Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana. Mr. Emmanuel Wilson Director of Communications for the People's National Convention, and Daniel Batidam is a former member of the AU Advisory Board on Corruption. Well, we'll be starting the discussion pretty shortly. A big thank you to our sponsors, Mobile Water, TT Brothers, Kulung Ghana Limited, and Franco Trading Enterprise. And once again, the vehicle fair is starting today. So if you're seeking to sell or buy a car, be it used on brand new or registered, visit the Ghana Trade Fair Center today, 22nd December, and tomorrow, 23rd December 2018, to partake in the vehicle fair. Now, they will exhibit well-known brands of cars for you to choose from. So be there. And also available will be various spare parts on display. So if you want to buy spare parts too, you can join them. The fair is brought to you by buy101.com. Buy101.com, where properties sell fast. And also from December 1st, it started from December 1st to December 31st. Now, you have the opportunity to enjoy free MTN credits anytime you buy mobile water. Buy 50 bucks and get 5 Ghana cedis MTN credit there and then. Whenever you buy 50 bucks of your refreshing mobile water, the seller will transfer 5 Ghana cedis of MTN credits electronically to your phone on the spot. It's as simple as that. Free top-up for you this Xmas period without sweat. 50 bucks to 5 Ghana cedis, Alhaji credits. This promo applies to only MTN numbers. You can call the hotline 0244 650939, 0244 650939 for more information. And that's from Mobile Water, one of our sponsors on the show. And I just wanted to share with you this statement issued by a group called the Policy Analysis and Monitoring Center on the President's encounter. And this is what they say. We deem it important to congratulate the President for the media encounter and his desire to subject himself to a question and answer session by a cross-section of the media so as to bring governance closer to the people. This is commendable given that the President was able to do this even under strenuous circumstances on arrival same day. And as much as the desire to do this is commendable, it must be done well if it has to. The program admittedly may have gone on seamlessly, but for the gaping flaws that exposed some incompetence of the President and his handlers. Now, the first issue they deal with is what they call late arrival. And it reads, late arrival of the President to the forum was an unprecedented dance, which could have been avoided. Actions of the President should be seen to set good examples for the citizenry. We want to believe that the lateness was partly due to the fact that he traveled into the country the same day. But again, his organizational capabilities comes into question as to why the event could not be rescheduled to a more convenient day. His handlers should be answering this question. It can also be fairly construed that the President was late because he had to be briefed privately on developments in his absence ahead of the engagement. This later manifested at the question time. Monologue. A presidential media encounter is often a day set aside to have an adequate time to listen and answer questions from the media than for the President to listen to himself or deliver a lecture to his audience. Why the President opted for that unending monologue is yet another minus. Matters even got worse when the media were virtually squeezed out of the encounter. This is because the President, who came about 30 minutes late, used 71 minutes for his monologue and allowed only 19 minutes for questions from the media. But there was also an unfortunate twist when President Nana Addo showed an unfriendly media posture by cutting most of them off. It is not surprising that they are outraged. The presidential media handlers have a lot of learning and catching up to do, and is one that requires competence. His presentation was also a bit problematic. We are at sea as to understanding what the President meant by saying that his policies will send Ghana to the 21st century. How? When indeed 21st century began almost 2 decades ago. Is this also a result of fatigue, something else, or a combination of many factors? Perhaps the handlers should have rested him to refresh his brains. Quite frankly, the man is not as sharp as he used to be. People should stop pretending and see him for what he is now. Competent hands are really needed at the presidency. There are many more issues within the subject that time won't permit us to enumerate. Q&A time. Well, the president's inability to answer common questions did not do any good to his image, even when he literally and unconventionally requested the questions to be leaked to him ahead of time. Answering same was difficult. It had not been same with past presidents who exhibited sharp institutional memory on issues pertaining to most sectors of the economy by answering questions on their feet. Nana Addo kept passing on the questions. How is it possible that the president could not remember an event that occurred in August of 2017? His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo and Mr. Gavin Brown, the executive director of MAMA, Michigan Aerospace Manufacturers Association, met in August 2017 to discuss the MAMA Help project at the office of the president, Flagstaff House. But when a question was put to the president on the day, he said he could not remember the man and does not even remember what was discussed. We still have 2 more years to go with Nana Addo, executive president and commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. You better look for the people who understand the circumstances of to handle the president. Now, drone a confirmed comparison. On the issue of the drones, Mr. President be informed that the critics are not only the opposition NDC, but also very important stakeholders such as the Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Laboratory Association. It is therefore important that they are listened to rather than lump them all up and condemn as cynics. By the way, what is there to compare between the SADA and confirmed projects and the drone project? There's absolutely nothing to compare. The SADA project has obviously failed, and there can be no excuse for it. Project success or failure is measured after implementation. This drone thing has not been implemented yet for us to do an impact assessment. So what is the point of comparison? Well-intended projects sometimes fail, so let's be careful with the high-speed propaganda. Mr. President, you are not just a politician, you are also a statesman. There's a conduct that guides the utterances and conduct of persons in the category of His Excellency. Please let your foot soldiers handle certain things. Oslo scandals. Perhaps one of the very lowest moments was when His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo attempted to deal with the Oslo scandal. The president was not in the country when this issue broke out in Parliament. Admittedly, he was not informed. He only flew into and got briefed by his ministers with inaccurate and lopsided information to meet the press. Out of maturity, this is one issue the president actually needed to stay out of until he is fully equipped with balanced information. To dismiss same as propaganda from his detractors is most unfortunate, least expected. Someone should be telling the president that he goofed big time. This is because not all members of his administration share the views that he presented. Chairman of the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs finds the transaction problematic. Honorable Kennedy Agyapong equally hails the minority and commends them for their vigilance and action taken so far.
I love Radio Gold 90.5.
Yeah, it looks like I've lost that part. So, on what basis did the president come to that obnoxious and repulsive conclusion? Things like this only portray the president as one who pretends to be interested in the fight against corruption. CSO. Civil society organizations are an integral part of democratic governance and the fight against corruption. They have held previous administrations to account and even became more vocal than ever in the Eswal Mahama administration. The opposition at the time was very comfortable with their statements and standard of measurements. Please, Mr. President, you can save your integrity by remaining consistent and chastise them the way you did simply because they found something wrong with your administration and your appointees. We do not want to believe that you think your appointees are a set of angels and saints. In conclusion, Mr. President, there's always another side to all issues. As the father of the nation, we implore you to endeavor to seek a second opinion, or better still, listen to your so-called critics before making judgmental comments or definitive conclusions, else you could easily be labeled as intolerant. The media encounter came across as a setup for your failure given what happened. Your performance is being measured against your predecessors. and the verdict out there isn't a favorable one. You may want to look at all those who played roles in this press encounter and see if all of them really deserve to have their jobs. And that's signed by Annette Enyo King, A. Suleiman, and Charles Gray. And that's a statement coming in from them. And also, let me share another one from Caucus for Democratic Governance Ghana before we start the discussion. And it's titled Nanando's Encounter with the Media, Total Fiasco, or a genuine attempt to address issues. It says the Caucus for Democratic Governance Ghana, observing the president's encounter with the media, could only conclude that the president's arrogant body language and posture reflects the lack of respect he has for the Ghanaian people. In the encounter, the president represented his government, while the media represented the people of Ghana. The absence of decorum on the part of the president is therefore an affront to the people of Ghana. In 2017, the president had two similar press encounters, where his abysmal performances showed his limited understanding of issues in question. More often than not, questions thrown at him were referred to his ministers and vice president, who were caught unaware. In yesterday's, that's Wednesday, 19th December 2018 encounter, the president came 30 minutes late, a careless attitude which demands apology by the good people of Ghana from the president. Pretending to be busy invariably about nothing, the president did a monologue that took nearly 40 minutes. The encounter saw the shortest time allocation for media questions, only 15 out of 70 possible potential questions were allowed from the media, many of them poorly answered by the president and his appointees. For the greater part of the media encounter, the president showed little or no knowledge about specifics of daily governance and so had to call on his ministers for rescue. Surprisingly, he appeared not to have any knowledge about issues on the Ghana Medical Store Fire investigation and national catastrophe, which must have appeared in the handing over notes from the former president John Mahama and the NDC government. As usual of the president, critical national issues which demanded answers were quickly censored, making sure that no questions were asked which could expose his lack of competence. The CDG views the media encounter as shambolic, deceptive, and diversionary taxes from the numerous corruption being perpetrated by the president and his MPP government on the good people of Ghana, and a total waste on the state coffers. The president was badly in a hurry and said he wanted to end the barricade of questions at 7. The fear of answering questions on the going incidents of corruption in his government, the shielding of his corrupt appointees and ministers, the macroeconomic indicators which does not reflect in the pockets of the ordinary Ghanaian had so scared him and was forcing him to call for the end of the program, to the disappointment of many invited journalists. The CDG would like to remind the president that without the people, he will not be president. He should therefore prepare adequately during such future media encounters in order to preserve the dignity of the high office of the presidency and save the nation from any future embarrassment. That's by Dr. Ike for this chief convener of the Caucus for Development Ghana. So those are the two statements I wanted to share with you on the media encounter before we start today's discussions. If you just joined us, you're listening to the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji And Alhaji. And my name is Sana Nobosho, produced by Patrick Asford Boyd. We are live on Pub MCGH now. The show is sponsored by Mobile Water, TT Brothers, Cologne Ghana Limited, and Franco Trading Enterprise. And Franco Trading Enterprise says you can enjoy an amazing 30% on any of the following products when you buy from their online platform: phone and accessories, tablet, flash screen TVs, and laptop printers. Simply download the Franco Trading app from your Google Play Store, place your order, and phone will be delivered right at your doorstep. For those who have challenges with the Franco app, please uninstall and download again. You can visit francotrading.com or francophones.com. Their branches are at Adabraka, opposite Roxy Cinema, at the bus stop, UTC Roundabout behind the Despite Building, La Paz near Niboy Junction, opposite Prudential Bank, Circle close to Odor Rice, also opposite Echo Bank, Oswald Street, Tema opposite Water West Community 1, Madina Old Road opposite HFC Bank, Hacho opposite Hacho Station, Koforidwa on the All Nations University College Road, Ho on the Market Road opposite Amagashi Building, Kaswa opposite the Kaswa Polyclinic. And you can call them on 0302-225-651, 0302-225-651, on 0546 133-188. Franco Trading phone Pepe Fie. And let me once again reintroduce my panelists for today. And I'm joined in the studio by Honorable Samuel Kujato Ablakwa, is Member of Parliament for North Tongue and Ranking Member on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. Professor Ninoy Dowona is a Senior Lecturer at the University of Ghana. Emmanuel Wilson is Director of Communications for the People's National Convention. And Mr. Daniel Batina is a former member of the EU Advisory Board on Corruption. Now, we are starting the discussion with the minorities expose on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration that is being called the Oslo Scandal. We'll discuss thoroughly the Oslo Chancery Scandal by the minority in Parliament and a response by the Minister and a reaction by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo describing it as a flimsy scandal. We'll start with the man who kicked everything off, is Honorable Samuel Kujato Ablakwa, on this whole Oslo Chancery affair. Good morning, Honorable, and thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning, Sana.
And Merry Christmas in advance, too.
Many, many happy returns. Good to see you, and good morning to Mr. Batidam. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.
And kindly permit me to extend the season's greetings to our distinguished viewers across the globe and our listeners as well. I believe that it is in order to wish all the dedicated listeners of Radio Gold a very, very Merry Christmas and a healthy and prosperous New Year. We want to thank the good Lord for His mercies this year. He's been very gracious to us. He's been merciful, and without Him, we would not have come this far. So I am personally grateful to the Most High for all His goodness. I will also seek your permission, Sana, to thank the chiefs, the queen mothers, the youth, the elders, and all the constituents of mine in the North Tongue constituency for their support. It has been a case of tremendous support from them. If it had not been their support, their guidance, and their encouragement, their inspiration, I would not have come this far. So I want to really, really thank them for all their support and their encouragement. Now, Senna, we are discussing the Oslo Gate, as it is now referred to by you in the media and many Ghanaians out there. You are right that earlier this week, specifically on Monday, the 17th of December, 2018, I did raise in Parliament when I rose to second the motion on the estimates of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, that I was seconding the motion with strong reservation, and that there is a particular expenditure item which had been presented to us at committee, and that expenditure item must not be approved by the House, and that Ghana ought not to proceed with that transaction. It is important to stress that on the 6th of December, the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament met with the Foreign Ministry. Now, as a way of background for those who want to understand the parliamentary processes better, Article 179 of the Constitution reads, quote, "The President shall cause to be prepared and laid before Parliament at least 1 month before the end of the financial year estimates of the revenues and expenditure of the government of Ghana for the following financial year." So this is the constitutional provision that triggers the reading of the budget. So when the budget statement is presented to Parliament, we debate on the general principles of the budget presentation. After that, the various ministries, departments, and agencies, all the organs of state, then appear before the respective committees of parliament to do two main things. Account to parliament how they spent the approvals for the previous year. So in this case, 2018. The allocation made to you, how did you spend it? So the various parliamentary committees will be scrutinizing that to be sure that you have not exceeded the approval ceiling, you have not misappropriated, you have not misapplied funds, there's no malfeasance and all of that. So those are the key issues we look at when it comes to the retrospective analysis of the expenditure of the previous year. And then the second thing we do is to also look at your projected expenditure for the coming fiscal year or the ensuing fiscal year. So in this case, 2019. So those are the two main things we look at. And remember that if you go through Article 180, Article 181, and Article 182, 183, the entire chapter 13 of the Constitution that deals with finance, if you're a member of Parliament, you must be very conversant with the provisions of Chapter 13, because that's a very, very important function of Parliament to carry out financial oversight on the executive and the judiciary as well. Those arms of government present their estimates to Parliament for scrutiny. So on the 6th of December this year, it was the turn of the Foreign Ministry to appear before us. Now, when they appeared before us, and we went through the usual routine, assessing expenditure of the previous year and looking at their programs and activities and how they intend to spend on those programs and activities for 2019. They provided us a brief on a $50 million United States dollar facility which had been secured by the erstwhile Mahama administration during the time now Her Excellency, she's at the United Nations, representing the Secretary General in Addis Ababa. We congratulate the Honorable Hannah Tete. When she was Foreign Minister, she secured this facility. The facility was secured in the latter part of 2016, ostensibly to renovate our missions and to purchase new properties as well. Because mind you, we have been spending a lot as a country on our existing 64 missions across the world. Not all of them have properties owned by Ghana, so we are spending so much on rent. And if you go through the archives, you notice that when we worked on the 2017 budget, it was a matter that came up for debate, where the Speaker of Parliament even asked that the Foreign Affairs Committee and indeed Parliament should ensure that we put pressure on the Foreign Ministry to utilize this facility and also to come up with more creative ways of raising funds so that we can own properties. Because that year, 2017, we had spent $14 million on just rent and utilities alone. And $14 million can do so much. It can help you purchase a number of properties, and so you save in the medium to long term. So back to the presentation to us at committee on the 6th of December. And I'm deliberately stressing the date so that we can all follow the sequence. This meeting was on the 6th of December. Because you have heard some people say that, oh, the matter he raised in Parliament was not even before the committee. It was not even before Parliament. We don't know where he brought that information from. He was on a frolic of his own. He took Parliament by surprise. Sadly, the Speaker of Parliament initially took that view when he hurriedly ruled to discredit the documents I had, which he had asked that I present to him. The fact that you, as Speaker, did not know these matters does not mean that these matters had not come before the House. So I'm taking my time to stress the dates and the backgrounds and giving you enough information so that you know that the claim by the Speaker that I was probably just being rebellious and I was motivated probably by mischief and so took the entire Parliament by surprise cannot be true. Indeed, the document I have here, which shows how the $50 million facility was going to be used, was presented to us by the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Now, if you go through the presentation they made to us, under disbursements, item numbered 3, they indicate that, quote, it is anticipated that by the end of December 2018, which is this year, very instructive, the following missions will have completed the due diligence processes and full payment effected from the facility. That is the $50 million facility. And this is a breakdown. Geneva, purchase of chancery, $3,024,706 United States dollars. Vatican, purchase of residency, $2,031,178.32 United States dollars. Paris, chancery, residence, and relocation cost, $5,256,133.34 United States dollars. Tel Aviv, purchase of chancery, $4,500,000 United States dollars. Cotonou, purchase of residency, $1,113,105.90 United States dollars. Bamako, construction of chancery, $100,000. Item number G, the last one, Oslo, purchase of chancery and residency, $16.5 million. Then they provide a total, $32.5 million is what they are going to be using for these expenditure items. Now, if you are a diligent member of Parliament, this certainly will raise eyebrow. This last entry, the purchase of chancery and residency in Oslo, because you notice that the figure $16.5 million is an outlier. It stands out. It is huge. Because look at Paris, chancery, residence, relocation costs, $5.2 million. Tel Aviv, purchase of chancery, $4.5 million. You have Geneva, very expensive city. Indeed, if you look at, if you do you check the global rankings of where to buy properties and, you know, expensive properties in the West, top 20. Oslo doesn't feature. You find Paris there, you find Geneva there. Geneva, we're buying a property for just $3 million. Vatican, the residency, $2 million. So this struck me. And then I began to ask questions. So first of all, I asked that, is it a mistake? Is it a typo that probably you want to put the 6.5? Because if you look at the entire list, there is no expenditure item here that exceeds $5.5 million. The highest is $5.2 million in Paris, the chancery, residence, and relocation cost. So I thought that probably that one had come there by mistake, so it was 6.5, you know, that's what I was saying. And they said, no, we know what we have brought to you. We are right. We are correct. We've made no mistake. So I said, okay, we would need you to provide us the breakdown of this. They didn't have it at the meeting. They presented it later through the clerks of the Committee of Foreign Affairs. To my surprise, the breakdown they brought, a copy of which I have here, you can see the breakdown of the cost of proposed buildings for Chancery and residence. The breakdown sought to justify this $16.5 million expenditure. The cost of the building was, that's the Chancery. The breakdown is in two parts, Chancery and residence. So the controversial property really is the Chancery. You notice that the residence falls more within, the normal scheme of things as happening everywhere else in Europe. You notice that the 25.7 million Norwegian kroner for the residence in Oslo works out to a little under $3 million. So which is quite, reasonable. It's following the trend. But then this Chancery in that same country, Oslo, we are given a total of 105,180,000 Norwegian kroner. That's if you add the cost of the building, 100,000 Norwegian kroner, you add the sales tax, the agency fee, registration of documents, legal fees, the structure and evaluation report as they presented. They gave us a total, which is correct, of 105,180,000 Norwegian kroner. This works out to $12.2 million at the current exchange. So I said to myself, wow, what kind of building? Because even if it is some palatial building and, it's worth the price, I wasn't too sure that a poor country, and that was the same week that the president was in Japan and thanking the Japanese emperor and the Japanese government for giving us $45 million. And if they heard that this poor country that gets so excited about a $45 million grant is spending $12 million purchasing a Chancery, is it worth it? Is that prudent expenditure? So I began to probe further. Then guess what? In my investigations, I found out that the Norwegian press had raised issue with this transaction. A Norwegian financial newspaper, a copy of which I have here, called Finansavisen, did extensive reportage on this transaction. And they described the transaction as unethical. Those are the words that the paper used. That the transaction is unethical. It is suspicious, it is dubious, and they are shocked that any country will be entering into such a transaction. So I thought that this was most revealing. You check the address contained in the Finansavisen report, it was the same address as we have been presented in Parliament. Sigens Gate 3, 0260 is the address of the building, land number 215, title number 522. The profile of the property also fits perfectly. Remember that we had been presented this. I'm told that this is an evaluation report. We did write to the Norwegian embassy to give us some translation of this report, and it's like the evaluation report of a sort of the property. And so it confirmed what was also in the Norwegian media about the address and the going price. Then, even more troubling, Senna, we discover that there is quite some history. The history of this property is that it was built 100 years ago in 1918. In 2014, a lady called Lillian Olsen bought the property for 25,250,000 Norwegian kroner, which is equivalent to $2.9 million. This lady uses the property for 3 years, makes good use of the property for 3 years, and then decides to sell the property. She sells the property to an unknown buyer, and that is another interesting angle which we are still pursuing. Who is that unknown buyer? So this unknown buyer purchases the property for $3.5 million in August last year, August 2017. $3.5 million, the equivalent of 31 million Norwegian kroner. Now, this unknown buyer who purchases this property for $3.5 million only last year, and it is instructive to note that between 2014 and 2017, the property in question appreciated by not more than $700,000. Indeed, far less than $700,000. But I want to be generous and charitable. So let's say $700,000 is the appreciation for 3 good years. But then in 1 year, August last year to now, the appreciation is around 400%. An increase by $8.6 million. So if you read the Norwegian press publications on this transaction, according to the journalists there, they say that even when they have spoken to brokers, real estate brokers, they say that, look, they're staying away from this property because they do not understand how a property, and you know, the property market there is very transparent. They have independent valuers and all of that. And they say that this property maximum should be valued at 40 million Norwegian kroner. Maximum, the maximum you can get. And they have that. Every property, you go online, they have independent valuers. They've gone to assess properties that are for sale, and they've put the range there. And all the range in all the property websites. And I did download a number of those valuation assessments from independent Norwegian websites, and it was part of the compendium of documentation I presented to the speaker, wherein he gave that bizarre ruling that the documents I presented to him were not stamped, they were not sealed. I mean, very strange. I've been in Parliament for 6 years now. All the documents we work with, including this budget statement that we are working on, do you see any stamp, any seal? All the committee reports we work with, all the memoranda from the executive, communication from the executive, and all other documentation we work with, including the Foreign Affairs Committee report, which I presented to him, including these documents from the Foreign Affairs Ministry on the property, seeking to justify the cost of this property and this transaction, including expenditure so far from the Finance Ministry. None of them is with a seal or with a stamp. So that ruling was most bizarre. It was just clearly an effort by a partisan speaker trying to see how he can save his political party. And as I told him when I rose up to speak after his ruling, I said it was a sad day for our democracy. You see, there is a reason why you have the 3 arms of government, because of the principle of checks and balances that the scholar Montesquieu had propounded many, many centuries ago. So that when we are in Parliament, in the legislature, we must try and suppress our partisan interests and remember that we are there to perform a role, checks and balances, to be sure that we serve the country well. And so that speaker's ruling is the most bizarre, and I'm sure that he himself, with time, he will want it to be expunged from our records because it will not do his legacy any good. So the history of the property is interesting. This unknown buyer is selling this property to us for $12.2 million. And all the documentation we have shows that our government had agreed and indeed had gone very far. You know, on this, after this expose, the government's position has been that, oh, you know, the transaction hasn't taken place. We were only, if you read the minister's 17 December statement to the public, she says that, one, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has not signed any agreement to purchase the said properties. That is the Chancery and the Ambassador's residence. Two, the ministry expressed interest in 2 properties in Oslo, and as required by the Public Procurement Act, commenced due diligence on the properties with the assistance of a property valuer and a reputable lawyer with expertise in the acquisition of properties for diplomatic missions. Now, Sana, let me take you through a set of facts, and you tell me if what happened is just expression of interest. We have here an agreement which was presented. They say that it's not an agreement. We should just call it an offer. That's fine. I don't mind. Whatever name they want to give to it. So we'll call it an offer letter. They presented this to the Foreign Affairs Committee. Clause 1 says the purchase price for the property, 100 million Norwegian kroner. So it confirms the breakdown that they have presented to us earlier. 2 says the property shall be taken over and the purchase price paid by 31st December 2018 if desired. The seller may defer the transfer to 2nd January 2019. And you notice that that also tallies with the documents they brought to Parliament seeking approval. They said that they were going to pay by end of this year. So it tallies. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? 3, the property shall be taken over as surveyed, provided, however, that any incomplete work per 21st November 2018 shall be completed before the delivery. 4, and this is a very interesting clause, the purchaser requires the residents to have the following work performed by the seller prior to takeover. A, the small wall on the 2nd floor of the ambassador's office shall be removed and the electric installation shall be installed on the inside of the wall with an opening of 30 by 30 centimeters. B, cables which cannot be removed in the opening shall be placed in boxes. C, in the office on the ground floor there shall be installed 2 toilets as shown in the drawing. We even presented drawings to them to reconfigure the property for us. D, wardrobe in the entrance hall shall be completed and ready to use. E, the seller shall install a kitchen in the best sitting room in the basement. You say you only express interest. Is this how you express interest? You express interest and you give the people drawings, give them your specifications, and tell them to go ahead and reconfigure the property to meet your specifications. And you say you only express interest. Who does that? Let me continue. Clause 5. The offer is made with the reservation that approval from the municipality to change permitted use of the property from residential to embassy has been granted. You ask the seller of the property to also go and engage the authorities in Norway to seek permission, to obtain permission for the conversion of the property. Remember, it was a residential property to a chancery property. An embassy office. A chancery is simply an embassy office of an embassy or of a mission. That's what chancery means. And you say this is just expression of interest. I come to you, you are selling. I don't really intend to buy. I haven't made up my mind to buy. And I give you all this work. That go and obtain permit from the authorities to convert your property to a chancery, an office for me. And then I also give you drawings. And then I tell you to start work. And as we have adduced, we sent a team there on the 13th of December who took video evidence of work that was going on. And the interesting thing, there was a conversation in the Norwegian language but you hear them talking about a chancery. The workers there know that they were working for Ghana government, meeting our chancery specifications as submitted. So, my brother, is this just an expression of interest, as the ministry 17 December statement says? Expression of interest. You have no commitment. You are just window shopping, just looking round, doing due diligence. And yet, you ask the seller of the property to do all of this for you. So when he secures the permit, and indeed it does show that the permit was secured, because if he had not secured the permit, he would not, because it is an offense to start construction when you don't have permit. And in Europe, they are very strict about that. So they secured the permission from the authorities to convert the property to a chancery, brought workers on site. They were working with your drawings, which we saw. And then you are telling us only after the fact, after you have been caught out, that you only went to express the interest. And you heard the president this week screaming hoarse, oh, the transaction has not even started. And this was a case of the spokesperson on foreign affairs throwing wild allegations. The transaction had not even started. We haven't started anything. You have gone this far, obtained permit from the Norwegian authorities, the buyers workers on site. Then clause 7, Senna, is even more interesting. Clause 7 of what they say is just an offer letter. Says, the offer is valid for 7 days from 22nd November 2018. 7 days. Now, 7 days from 22nd November 2018 is 29th. So you let us be very generous. Let's be kind and say 30th November 2018. Now, you appeared before our committee on 6th December. That's why earlier I was stressing the date. On 6th December, not on 22nd or 23rd or 24th of November, but 6th December. About 2 weeks since you reached this agreement with the property seller. And you were talking about this same property. What does it mean, Senna? Does it mean, obviously, that you have accepted this offer and that you have closed the deal? This deal clearly had been closed, sealed, signed, and delivered. And all you were coming for was approval from Parliament. Because in any case, Parliament is not a dumping ground where you just, your thought processes and things, you're just expressing interest, you haven't made up your mind, and then you come and you haven't done due diligence, and you come and dump these documents on us. So what were you doing in Parliament? So it is clear that when the president says that this transaction had not started and that there is no merit, the president used the expression mere allegation without more. Mere allegation without more. Look at all the documentation here brought to us by your own ministers. And you say that mere allegation without more, no proof of evidence. So, Senna, it is clear that the deal had been closed. Then there's the other angle, Senna, where it is said that in Parliament, I had said that the property had been paid for. You have heard them say that. And so because of that, I peddled an untruth. I have here the official report of Parliament on the day, 17 December 2018. And I'm going to read to you what I said from column 5110. And I'm quoting what I said in Parliament, with your permission. Mr. Speaker, now the major reservation that I have as I conclude is that the new mission being opened in Oslo, Norway, paragraph 8.6 of the committee's report, which talks about the $50 million facility, which is being used to open new missions, investigations that we have conducted on this side reveals that the $16.5 million that this committee has presented as the budget for the new mission in Oslo, the Chancery, and ambassador's residence is outrageously high and outlandishly inflated. Outrageously high and outlandishly inflated. I carefully chose my words for effect. So that is what I said. And you know, I was very charitable to the minister. Look, I have said publicly that this is not personal. I am not on any personal vendetta. I have nothing against the foreign minister or the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. This is nothing personal. I'm only doing my job. So now imagine that we in the minority had not been scrutinous, we had not been vigilant. And then this matter is brewing in the Norwegian media. The Norwegian press has already described the transaction as unethical. And then you, Senna, you and your colleagues in Ghana, pick it up later, after we have approved this. What will you say about Parliament? What will you have said about all of us? You will have bashed us, and it will have been justified. It will have been justified on the part of the Ghanaian media and the Ghanaian people to discredit Parliament. I would have thought elsewhere, the Speaker of Parliament and the majority side would be commending us. They would even use this as an example that this is what it is expected of members of Parliament in carrying out their constitutional mandate, because you have saved this country from embarrassment. You have protected the reputation of the institution of Parliament. Elsewhere, that's what will be said. So I was coming to how charitable I was to the minister. I said, look at column 5112. I'm quoting what I said in Parliament. So, the Honorable Foreign Minister may not know these details. Maybe she does not know, but she would have to investigate. That is why this house exists. And that is why the Foreign Affairs Committee exists, to do due diligence, to carry out our oversight, unquote. These were my words. I have heard people say, oh, you know, he was not on a noble path. He had some mischievous intentions. He just wanted to embarrass government. And if you read the Ministry of Foreign Affairs statement, they were concerned about Ghana's image, Ghana Norwegian. Please. This rather enhances our image. Look, the Norwegian press is already questioning why a sovereign state, Ghana, with all the capacity that the foreign ministry has to do due diligence. You know all the other ministry, department, agencies. I served at Information and Education as Deputy Minister. We write to foreign ministry to do due diligence for us. When foreign entities want to relate with us, want to do transactions with us, we are going to international agreements and all of that. We rely on you, the foreign ministry, to do due diligence on our behalf, because you have the capacity, you have the network, you have missions abroad. And in the case of Norway, we have not only an honorary consular, we also have the mission in Denmark having concurrent accreditation or responsibility over Norway. So there was the capacity there to do due diligence. You did not. So those who are claiming, and it always happens when they have been caught out, then they want to make the person who is rather on the path of good, seeking to protect the public purse, seeking to save resources for the taxpayer, they decide to go after that person. So, Senna, you have seen that in my submissions in Parliament, I did not say that all the $16.5 million has been paid. I never said that. I was concerned about what were my words? The outrageously high and outlandishly inflated costs that they had brought to us. And you see, Senna, why I said that, and I explained if I was to read through, and because of time, I don't want to read through all of what I said. I took my time, went through the breakdown that they brought to us. This breakdown. I found out that every single item had been inflated. Every single item. And I drew the speaker's attention. Do you know that the structure and evaluation report, for example, which they were expecting us to pay 40,000 Norwegian kroner, the investigations we conducted revealed that in Norway, when you pay an agency fee, and remember we are paying so much, $2.5 million Norwegian kroner in registration, in agency fees. You don't pay separately for a structure and evaluation report. That's what our investigations proved. And we brought all the evidence here for Mr. Speaker to see. The registration of documents is a statutory charge. The Parliament of Norway approves that nobody can charge above 525 Norwegian kroner. And yet, what was presented to us at committee is 50,000 Norwegian kroner, inflated by more than 49,000 Norwegian kroner. Every single item here was inflated. Every single item. Even the legal fees. We are told that once you pay agency fees and all of that, it's all part of, you don't need to pay legal fees of 90,000 Norwegian kroner. You don't pay legal fees. That is why they pointed to us that if you look at the residency, you don't have legal fees there in that breakdown. And that this is not supposed to be here. So what is going on? Who is behind this transaction? Who is that unknown buyer? Who is making all these inflated recommendations and bringing to Parliament? And you expected us to just give you approval. Then you see, Sana, the other accusation that has been thrown at me is that, oh, you know, this Oslo matter, he took us by surprise. That means that he was just on a mischievous path. He didn't have good intentions. It is not true. All of these investigations that we did, we wanted a bipartisan approach. It was all just about saving Ghana money. Because as I said in my submission, I said that, who knows, maybe the minister does not even know about it. It could be some people in the estate department, some low-line officers who are seeking to cash in. Minister has said, look, President wants us to open an embassy in Norway. You guys go and do the due diligence, go and secure property for me. And they are. That's what I thought initially. But now with all the conduct of the president and everybody, now I don't really know who to believe. So I brought all of this information to the knowledge of the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Then the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee says, wow, this is mind-boggling and really troubling. So let us write to the ministry. I have a copy of the letter here. On the 12th of December, the chairman of the committee, the Honorable Frank Anodompre, signs this letter. And let me read the letter. To Honorable Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, attention Chief Director, proposed purchases of buildings for Chancery and residence in Oslo. You may recall that at the budget hearing meeting held on Thursday, 6 December 2018, the committee requested for a comprehensive report on the disbursement and utilization of the $50 million loan facility for the renovation of some selected missions abroad. The committee acknowledged receipt of the report and thanked the ministry for prompt response. The committee has, however, raised some concerns relating to acquisition of properties amounting to $16.5 million for the mission in Oslo. To enable members appreciate the nature and form of these purchases, it will be appreciated if the ministry could furnish the committee with the following documents relating to the proposed property for the mission in Oslo. 1. Valuation report of the properties. 2. The ownership of the property and exact location. Because remember that this unknown buyer is the one who is selling to us, and we suspect that it's all part of a grand scheme. So we were, as a committee, interested in who that unknown buyer is. 3. Purchase agreement or contract of purchase. The committee, at your earliest convenience, wants to meet you for a thorough briefing on purchases and activities of the mission in Oslo. While the committee anticipates a favorable response, please accept the committee's warmest regard. Yours sincerely, Honorable Frank Anodompre, Chairman, Committee of Foreign Affairs, a member, an MPP member of Parliament, dated 12 December. 12 December. So when the Speaker of Parliament says that I did not bring all these matters to the attention of leadership, to my colleagues on the committee, and I have just taken everybody by surprise because I just want to be a mischief maker, it is false. It is false. I had to speak on the floor of the House on the 17th, 5 clear days after this letter had not been responded to. And you know why I had to speak is that the Honorable Foreign Minister had come to the House on the 17th, Monday this week, to move the motion for an estimate, which will have meant that all of these things will be approved if I didn't speak. Yeah. By sending her this letter, our understanding was that upon returning from Japan last week, she will come and meet us and explain, respond to the issues that we have raised before you come to the floor and move the motion. You didn't do that. You rather, if there's anybody who took us by surprise, is the minister and government seeking to take us by surprise, ignoring our 12 December letter, and then coming to the floor to move the motion. And in moving the motion, I have also heard people say that, when the minister was moving the motion has nothing to do with Oslo. Why did I have to raise that matter? I should have waited. Ladies and gentlemen, column 5078 of the official report of the day. Listen to what the minister said. Mr. Speaker, also, we will open a resident diplomatic mission in Oslo, Norway, and 2 consulates, unquote. The minister brought in Oslo, spoke to Oslo as part of the things that they are going to do 2019. If you are an MP with a conscience and you want to protect the public purse, you don't want tomorrow it will be said that you are all part of the conspiracy. This $8.6 million inflation, probably they called the ranking member in the corner and said, you two come and you will get some $1 or $2 million. And that is why it will have been very difficult for me to convince anybody that minister has mentioned Oslo in moving her motion, and that is the approval they are seeking. And then I keep quiet. How do you think I don't deserve to represent the people of Northton? The people of Northton should have removed me. My party should have removed me if I kept quiet. So I am surprised that people are saying that, why did he have to do that? Why did he have to raise it? I mean, shocking. Totally shocking. Now, Senna, those who are following the president's cue, and it includes the chairman of my committee, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he had been speaking publicly. You all heard him. He commended me publicly that in this matter I was very bipartisan. I always brought my findings to his attention. That is why he wrote, and that's why we were waiting for the minister to come respond. Then suddenly, Thursday, following from the president's Wednesday evening encounter, he hosts a press conference on Thursday. Because the president has said, this is bogus, there's nothing in it, he also makes a U-turn. You see what bad leadership does? Bad leadership, you see? You see what it does? ABA Fuseni says that when you visit a village and the chief of the village is carrying a bad haircut, what sometimes you call wicked haircut, don't expect anything better from the youth in the village. That is what bad leadership. Wednesday night, clearly the president was not briefed. He did not even know what his people have been up to. That is, if it was not part of a grand scheme. And then, so the chairman makes a U-turn. And now the chairman says that he cannot work with me. They will have to manage me, that I am becoming a nuisance. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Elsewhere, other parliaments, I will be hailed as a hero. But in Ghana, under the MPP leadership, I'm a nuisance. And I don't mind at all. I'm not offended. People call that, take him on, get your constituents to demand an apology. I said, no, forget it. Forget it. I'm not provoked at all. I mean, if exposing fraud, scandalous transactions makes me a nuisance, I'll love it. I'll continue to be, an even bigger nuisance. I'm not bothered at all. But you see, Senna, listen to what the majority leader said in closing. Yes, in closing the debate. Listen carefully to the majority. And you see, President, you have just arrived from Vienna. This media encounter, they changed the time twice. You had the briefing, I'm sure. There's a matter brewing in Parliament. It was the biggest scandal when you arrived. Some even believe that this whole media encounter was meant to divert attention from this scandal. You did not talk to your majority leader. Listen to the majority leader. I'll wrap up with his submissions on this. And by the way, those who have also said that Oslo is not in the budget, it is not true. Paragraph 419 of the budget statement, I have a copy here. Paragraph 419. And it is quite interesting and intriguing that it is 419. The paragraph is 419. Paragraph 419, it says, government opened new resident consular posts in Niamey, Niger, and Tripoli, Libya, with the aim to better serve our compatriots and to play a pivotal role in finding solutions to immigration and security-related issues, as well as strengthen the bilateral and economic ties with those countries. Government also opened a resident diplomatic mission in Oslo, Norway, and 2 consulates general in Port Louis, Mauritius, and Guangzhou, China. Paragraph 419 of the budget statement, as presented by the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. So this Oslo-Norway affair is part of government policy. It's integral. Now I'm rounding up with the submissions of the majority leader. And I have commended the majority leader publicly. That day he spoke a lot of wisdom. He did not speak like President Akufo-Addo spoke on this matter on Wednesday night. And I quote from column 5130 of the official report of 17 December 2018. Parliament indeed exists. Sorry, let me begin from the top. Majority Leader, Mr. Osei Chairman Samboso, MPP Swame. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much. Parliament indeed exists to exercise oversight responsibility over the executive. In this case, if an allegation is made, it must be responded to, so we have a balanced presentation. Mr. Speaker, we have listened to the submissions of the Honorable Ranking Member, who spoke to an offer to sell property in Norway to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. I may disagree with the Honorable Ranking Member on some of the language that he used, but we should be concerned with the pivotal issues that he raised. Mr. Speaker, first, it is important to state that the offer and purchase of a residential property in Oslo has come up. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, what is now going on is that the person who wants to sell the property to Ghana, preparatory to sealing the deed, is even now really adding value to the property in order to justify the price he is quoting. That is his own concern. What is coming out is that that person himself has come under the radar of the Norwegian authorities, that perhaps he must be dealing in some underhand operations. You know, during the break, which became quite, controversial when the foreign minister, confronted me and then had that altercation with Sam George and all of that. The majority leader also tried to do his own background check, and he returned with this verdict. He said, what is coming out is that the person himself has come under the radar of the Norwegian authorities, that perhaps he must be dealing in some underhand operations. Mr. Speaker, as we are told, the intent for this person, who is for now still unknown, is that the man wants to use the facility to secure some loan facility from whatever bank to justify the price he is quoting. Now that is where we are. It is for us to let the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to have such information, and it is for them to conduct further due diligence. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Minority Leader that quite apart from what the ministry would do, as a house, our own committees could assist us, because that is the purpose of Article 1033 And with your permission, I quote, "Committees of Parliament shall be charged with such functions, including the investigation and enquiry into the activities and administration of ministries and departments as Parliament may determine. And such investigation and enquiries may extend to proposals for legislation." Mr. Speaker, so Parliament itself should be concerned, quite apart from what the ministry will be doing. If we task our own committee to perhaps even engage consultants in this enterprise, so be it. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we should exercise our oversight responsibility. For now, however, these allegations should concern us. Have there been any commitments from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration? There is none that we know of. This is a forewarning to the ministry that they should be on their guard and do what is appropriate. Mr. Speaker, but while we are this, I believe that the issues that have been raised by my honorable colleague, the ranking member, should concern not only Parliament, but the entire country. This is the majority leader speaking. Should concern the entire country, because we know of the sale of properties of the ministry and our embassies that have been very bizarre. We do not need to travel to Norway. We know what happened in Lagos, Nigeria just about 5 years ago. Residential facility in prime areas went for a song. The minister perhaps might not even know anything about it, but the estate people would have their own way of doing things. Yet it is the honorable minister who will bail the cat. So the honorable minister and the ministry should be on their guard, and she should appear before us with the results of any due diligence that she might conduct. Mr. Speaker, I would also urge that we can also task our committee to further go into it so that whatever the ministry brings to us, subsequently, same could be juxtaposed with the findings of our own committee, and it will further enrich our legislative processes. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I do not think that on the account of what has been said by the honorable ranking member, we should abort the approval process. We should be concerned in any way that the proper thing is done. Let us task the honorable minister to come to us at a stipulated time after the approval, perhaps within 3 months, to submit her findings. At the same time, we could task our Committee on Foreign Affairs to also delve into it so that we could balance whatever findings emerge. This is the majority leader, Osei Chairman Samboso, speaking wisdom, not speaking like President Akufo-Addo spoke on Wednesday night. Finally. Senator, I beg you, just, no, I beg you 1 minute. I beg you, this is very important. I beg you, this is very important. Finally, I beg you. I know I've taken quite some time, but I had to because of a lot of the, deliberate attempt to just obfuscate the issues. And this is very, very important. The claim has been made that so far no money has been spent. No money has been spent. Now, per the minister's own statement, she says that they engaged valuers, an agency, and lawyers. Per the 17th December statement. Is government telling us that all these experts are working for free? They are working pro bono? They love Ghana so much. Then also, we asked the finance ministry to submit to our committee what they know about this whole transaction and what their records are reflecting. And they submitted to us this document. And by the way, I've heard people say that, and my chairman said that the ranking member is leaking official information, and so, we are now going to manage him and watch what information he gets and all of that. Please, parliamentary committee hearings, if you decide to hold in-camera hearings, there must be a vote. And you remember the finance committee probe into the banking crisis. They took a vote that it should be in-camera. Else, our standing orders are very clear. They are open meetings. And these meetings, you had staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs there. It's open. There's nothing, none of these documents is labeled confidential. Any journalist can walk to Parliament and ask for these documents. So, in any case, you say you've done nothing wrong, and yet you are worried that documents are being shown. So this is the response we got from the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance sends us this document and tells us that on the 20th of October 2018, they released 15 15.3 million, 15,337,152.58. And this is the description of the transaction. It says, establishment of diplomatic missions in Oslo, Norway, and Consulate General in Port Louis, Mauritius, and Guangzhou, China. 15.3 million is released 20th October 2018. We are told that there's some other different explanation for it. What is that explanation? So when the president tells us, and when the MPP says that, oh, you know, we've not spent a peso, this 15.3 million is, we are interested as a committee to know, where is it? What was it used for? All these experts you engage, lawyers, valuers, an agency, let's see the contract, if they are working for free. Then that construction work is going on. That's why we have said that the ministers claim that she wrote to them to stop the back out of the transaction. Where is that letter? We haven't seen it. What is the response of the seller? Because the seller has done extensive works to meet your drawings, all your configurations that you ask them to do. Are we sure that Ghana will not be held liable? Are we not going to pay for all those works that have been done? So there is a lot more questions that we have so far as this scandal is concerned. But let us thank God that at least we have chalked a major victory. Government clearly has backed out of the transaction. They cannot go ahead with it. We have saved $8.6 million of the taxpayers' money, which we can use for clinics, boreholes, even road projects, and many other things that will bring relief to our people and alleviate the suffering that our people are going through. And we thank the people of Ghana and the Almighty for that victory. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. This is the first time my viewers on Facebook are actually demanding for more time for you. So thank you very much for that delivery. And he set the tone. Let's go to Mr. Nanya Batina. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator. And good morning to our listeners and I think viewers. Sometimes I come to radio stations thinking that nobody is seeing me, but these days it seems you can't hide
technology
in the radio station. Let me join Honorable Okujetu Blakwa and wish your numerous listeners and viewers Merry Christmas. We all owe it a duty to thank God for how far we have brought us. I am sure even you could see from the body language of us, the panelists here, that we were not in a hurry to have the Honorable Sami done, because, I mean, if we don't have the foundation documents and information, what are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be analyzing? And I come from a background of content analysis. In my studies in School of Communication and Public Policy, I've always said, give me the content so that I can study it and make my own judgment. And that is why I think, in fairness to our listeners, it was necessary that we gave the time we gave to the Honorable Okujetu Ablakwa to enlighten all of us in the first place, and then to help us to see what to make of what we now have before us. Maybe I should start by saying that, having been around for quite some time and following our governance, we are making a headway. Sometimes those of us who have been involved in accountability and anti-corruption and so on, people ask you, what is it that you are spending all your time doing, you know, all the time talking about corruption and all that? I mean, what have you even gotten from it? But nations have been built through the sacrifices of principled men and women who have decided to look beyond their personal gain and personal interest and taking up public good, the public interest, as the basis upon which they carry out whatever they do. And I think
I want to begin from where the Honorable Okujetu Ablakwa ended by commending Parliament. And I say Parliament, I want to be emphatic that I am commending Parliament because the last part of his presentation, which had to do with what the majority leader, Honorable Oseche Mensah Bonsu, said, is very, very important. Because we all know that by the way our Parliament works, the minority can always have their say, as they have had all these years. But at the end of the day, the majority will have their way. And for me, I have known Honorable Oseche Mensah Bonsu for some time. We worked together for close to 5 years when I was Executive Director of the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, and he was the Ghana chairperson. He even became the chair for APNAC Africa while we worked together. And I think that it is comforting. It is comforting that he is trying in and under very difficult circumstances to maintain and uphold the principles of APNAC. I think it is important and commendable. And when we engage in this discourse, it is important for us not to downplay the role of the government in power through its various agencies, and the majority in Parliament, which is part of the government, is a critical and important partner that we need to engage in our anti-corruption and accountability fight. And if they decide to stay in bed with the executive and refuse to open their eyes to the wider and broader issues, we are in deep trouble. But I say this only as a way of acknowledging that the minority alone cannot take the credit for how far we've come. But that is also not to downplay the critical role that the minority, through their member, especially the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, has played in this matter. And I think for his youthfulness, Honorable Samuel Okujetu Ablakwa deserves a lot of praise. He deserves a lot of encouragement. And I want to personally tell him that there is a long way to go. There is a long way to go, and I'm hoping that Sami will be encouraged by the fact that a lot of people that we know and deal with internationally are taking note of the fact that Ghana's parliament and its minority, for that matter, is not made up of opponents of the ruling government, but representatives of people from different parts of our country who are serious about their responsibility, are serious about the functions assigned to them as members of parliament, which are threefold: representation, legislation, and oversight, with oversight being the most critical. And I think this, we have had for a long time a very big gap when it comes to the issue of oversight, because oversight is normally performed mostly by the minority, and there can be a lot of obstacles. In fact, in some instances, the majority even go as far as compromising the minority members so that they are not able to raise issues they should raise. So for that matter, I want to really applaud the minority and specifically the ranking member for the good work they have done. He says they have saved Ghana some 8 point something million. I don't think we can calculate these things in monetary terms. Look, our ministry and government, for that matter, has been engaging in this transaction over some time. And it's only in Ghana that I'm aware that time is not money. Everywhere else in the world, time is money. So even the time that our government, represented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all other persons that have been engaging in discussions around this issue, for all the time that they have spent, that is money. I'm sure it has involved some travels. I'm sure it has involved meetings. I'm sure it has involved even all kinds of things. And so nobody should underestimate the value of what this Oslo Gate is bringing to our democracy and the issue of accountability. I don't want to go over and dilute the details that have been provided by Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, because he has been so elucid, and one just can't help but to ask, what is wrong with our leaders? Or are they leaders? And he has talked about, excuse me to use the word, but I think it is the only word, the ignorance of the speaker, who jumps into conclusion without information that is supposed to be available to him. For me, this is scary, because for some time now, it appears to me that we are dealing with a hierarchy of ignoramuses who are in charge of our affairs. And I say a hierarchy because the speaker is just the head of one arm of government. We are also aware that our head of state and president himself, by his recent outing with the press, has shown that there are a lot of things he doesn't know. This is the man in charge of the ship of state. Many things he doesn't know. He says, oh, this thing, oh, is that something that has come up? Oh, okay, well, let me ask my ministers. Well, and of course, some of the ministers have also shown that they themselves are not even sure whether they know what the president is asking them about. So for me, this scandal is blasphemous. Already, Norwegian papers have described this as unethical. Unethical is a very important and serious issue in governance. So for an international media or press to describe an action or a transaction that involves our government as unethical, I think we are already on the defensive. We are already on the defensive. As, let me call him Samuel because he's my younger brother, has said, maybe we should have been thanking, as a country, we should have been thanking him. I know there is cost involved. I've been involved in anti-corruption work for some time now, and I know that there is always cost involved in conducting any investigation. So it could not have cost them nothing to get all this trail of information that has been put before us. And from the chronology of events, if you look at the dates with, that are related to the various events, from the 6th, when they had the committee meeting, to, I don't know which date, the 12th or so, when the minister made her presentation, and so on and so forth, it's clear that a lot had gone on. And by the way, the minister was presenting something in Parliament for approval. It could not have been something for them to look at and find out whether they have completed it or not. She was presenting estimates of expenditure to be made for approval. So for goodness sake, How do you come back to tell us that, oh, you are jumping the boat or the ship or whatever? How do you come back after presenting all the details about payments to be made? And in fact, the figure that Mr. Okujeto-Blakwa has described as inflated is the figure of the minister. It's not his. And then he has gone far to show us, make comparisons of similar expenditures. In any case, even if he didn't make those comparisons, why would a country like Ghana, in the state in which we are now, which even our president has admitted is not the best of economies, be going to invest such an amount of money in procuring a chancery and what else is it? A residence for a foreign minister. I'm not going to go to, as I said, go back to the details, the fine details that have already been provided by Honorable Okujeto-Blakwa. But some things are definitely striking, and one cannot run away from them. You see, they mentioned the name of a buyer in 2014. So, the trail shows that up to some point, information was available about what this whole thing is about. But then from a certain point onwards, we are no longer able to know who we are dealing with. And that is even an important matter. Who is this unknown seller? Who is the unknown seller of the property, the highly inflated property that Ghana wants to buy or procure for a chancery and so on? These are important questions that, and especially that they are contained in a report that has been brought before Parliament for approval. I think it would have been a bizarre situation for our parliamentarians, especially the minority, to sit down and just pass this. And of course, later on, they would have been blamed. If this thing had passed, I assure you, later on, if the issues were brought up, they would have said, look, I go back to the Hansard. You were the one who seconded this motion or sat in here, made these statements, and this thing was passed. But for me, it boils down to one thing. It boils down to one thing, and that is about our president's commitment to the fight against corruption. And I single out the president because of the reaction that he made, especially recently during the press meeting, which I consider as one of the saddest days in the life of a president who continues to talk about corruption as being one of the things he would like to deal with and be remembered for when he is gone. Some of us, after waiting for 23 months, that is nearly 2 years, I think we have come to a very firm conclusion that this is not a president who can fight corruption. Not only from his body language, not only from his actions, not only from his speeches, but even his attitude. From the president's attitude, it is clear that he has no commitment whatsoever to fighting corruption in Ghana. And I dare say, for those who are still thinking that this is just a political issue between NDC and MPP, that Ghana is in serious trouble. Ghana is in serious trouble as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. Some people sit here and there and talk about 2020 and keep on saying that, oh, well, we wait till 2020 and boot him out. Well, you will be lucky to exist in 2020 at the rate at which this country is being looted, at the rate at which there is lack of accountability at the rate at which there is blatant display of impunity. Because you see, this is not something that has already been concluded. And yet the president has come out to make a statement. What if things come up later and show that, and from what the honorable minority member has presented to us, it is clear that even his own colleague in parliament, the chairman of the committee, had to change his approach to addressing the issue after the president spoke. Because now the president is saying that there is nothing untoward. So whilst the same chairman had earlier praised the honorable ranking member for his contribution, now that the head has expressed a different view, it trickles down and he himself has to change. I don't know of my friend Oseche Mensah whether he would like to retract what he said, but I've already given him his praise, which is due him for what he has stated and which is on record. But what it sends is that it sends a bad signal about our commitment to fighting corruption. And let me say something by way of this whole idea that payments have not been made and that things have not reached their conclusion. You know, we are talking about a government and a president which, whenever they launch an activity, they already say we have achieved our goal. And this is a matter of record. They go to a Kumfi and launch one district, one factory, and after that they say, oh, you see, when we said we'll do this thing, people said we cannot do it, but we have done it. It is only in Ghana, under this presidency and this government, that I have seen that launching a program becomes the goal and the achievement of the objective of the program. And it is the same thing with the education issues, the free HSS, free SHS. They launch it and say, you see, we said we'll do it. They say we cannot. Even in the midst of all the challenges we are facing with this implementation, they say we have achieved our goal. And now when it comes to an issue like this, they say, no, we haven't made payments yet. There is no contract yet. But mind you, we are talking about a president and a government which has been misled before. And that is what saddens me. Because one would have expected that after the president's earlier experience in the Ajaku case, where he was misled, he would be more careful going forward in making pronouncements on issues that he is not completely seized with. But here is the president coming out to say there is nothing untoward, and that this is just the usual game of the minority, and say and go on to say that we should expect more of this in 2019. Let us send a very clear warning to His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo that this country is not made up of NDC and MPP people. Ghanaians expect more from their president, Ghanaians expect more from the government, and Ghanaians expect more from their elected representatives in parliament. And so, it is high time the president sends a better signal. But I doubt at this stage that this president is going to send a better signal. So I have a few alternative proposals. And one of them is actually to reiterate a point that was made last week by Ambassador Sampi Yale, which was a call on the members of parliament who belong to the ruling party, the NPP, to make sure that they do not sacrifice themselves for the bad leadership they have provided to Ghana. Because if they don't take care, they will pay dearly as a political party. But as I said earlier, this fight cannot be won just by a minority. It cannot even be won by civil society or other non-state actors. It needs the cooperation and collaboration and commitment of the ruling party. And I think maybe Professor Douna would enlighten me or us on how political parties function. But, you know, you know people, and then when they get into political parties and get into parliament, they say there is a whip there they use to make them go and do things against their will. I want to appeal to the majority in parliament that they should make 2019 a year in which they are going to work for the people who elected them to parliament and to work for Ghana. Because if from the report we have seen, including the remarks by the chairman of the committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and those of the majority leader are anything to go by, it means that the facts are quite clear. And the case for an investigation is clear. The case for investigating this matter is clear. And I listened carefully to Honorable Okujeto Blakwa because he was even calling on the minister to investigate. He was not accusing her. He was calling on her to investigate because it is also possible that what we are talking about is happening on the blind side of even the minister. And yet, all that has been thrown away, and the last man, the president, who himself doesn't know much about many of the things that are going on in the country because of what he displayed recently at the press conference, comes around and says it's all about opposition politics. Mr. President, we expect more than this from you. This is not what we elected you to do. And this is not what you promised Ghanaians. And we are going to hold you to your promises. We are going to hold President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the MPP government to the promises they made to the good people of Ghana. And if he thinks that in 2019 it is going to be about minority continuing to do some things, he should better think again, because the people of Ghana will be facing their president and the government next year. Next year will be the year of accountability, I declare. Because, you see, in governance and in the fight against corruption, normally the window of opportunity that exists for every new government is within the first 18 to 24 months. And now, that window is closing up. Clearly, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is locking himself up in a room where he will need to bail himself out of. Because, you know, you cannot reduce everything to politics. And indeed, one of the things that has happened in the last 24 months that has taken, in my view, has taken this country backwards is the extreme partisanship, which is displayed by the #1 person in the country. He reduces, our president reduces everything to party politics, to the extent that even now he has taken it beyond the political parties as he did during his press conference. He's now taking it even to civil society groups and saying that they don't, they make empty noise. But you see, it's interesting, and I hope this is a lesson for my friends in civil society. Now our president is saying you make empty noise. I remember earlier this year, in around February, the first quarter of the year, after the CPI came out, the Corruption Perception Index, and Ghana performed poorly. You know, that is the 2017 report. The president summoned a meeting of civil society and anti-corruption practitioners to the presidency, ostensibly to discuss, to get ideas from them how he's going to tackle the problem of corruption in order to improve our score in the CPI in future. I think it is time for the civil society groups themselves to now realize that the president did not mean anything when he summoned them. He was just doing politics, cheap politics. That is what the president was doing. In fact, when I looked at some of the people who went to meet the president about this corruption perception index in the meeting, they didn't even show the meeting. You know, they are going to a meeting about transparency and it is not transparent. They lock them behind closed doors to have the meeting. What do you have to discuss with Ghanaians or civil society groups about inputs to public policy that you need to hide from people? They only showed the introduction where he made his welcome statement and we saw the faces of people, and then they went behind closed doors. You cannot do transparency work in darkness. You cannot fight corruption by switching off the lights. So I think we will be beating about the bush if we pretend as if this scandal, and it is a monumental scandal, it is yet one of the big minuses of this president and this government in his first 24 months in office. And for me, as I said already, it is time to call upon the party that put this president as their leader to think twice about the party's future. Because maybe in the short term they are, and I say this from a position where we have been meeting some of them, and indeed there are a lot of NPP members who are quite uncomfortable with the president's posture on a lot of things. They tell you in private. What I'm telling them is to stop talking in private and come out and say our party upholds certain values and principles that is higher than what our leader is displaying. Because anybody can be the leader of a party at a time. But the values and principles of a party must be such that when they put any person to lead them, that fellow must represent those values and principles. And if it is necessary for the party to save itself and its future by denouncing some of the things the president is saying and doing, they should better do that sooner than later. But they are not the only people. I have said elsewhere that one of the biggest things we are suffering from in this country, and especially in the last 2 years, is a huge deficit of honesty. And I will continue to say that honesty, or its opposite, dishonesty, is corruption. If you don't know what corruption is, when you meet a dishonest man, the fellow is a corrupt person. You take it from me. And the level of dishonesty, lack of transparency we have seen in the last 2 years is enough for us to say something is wrong. Something is wrong, and it is a very serious thing which is wrong. We cannot continue in this light. And once we talk about honesty, it also brings to mind those groups and people or leaders that are supposed to promote honesty and integrity. And that, for me, brings to mind our religious leaders. Where are they? Where are religious leaders in Ghana? I recall in 2000 when President Rawlings met Catholic bishops in Cape Coast, and he spoke in such a way that even the bishops themselves were confounded. He said, truth is divine. Rawlings said that truth is divine. So where are our religious leaders in the face of so much lack of truthfulness, so much dishonesty in our society? Where are they? And now that I have mentioned former President Rawlings, maybe it is also time for us to call upon him, because we know the relationship he has had with the current administration and the president, to call upon the former president to use his closeness with the president to perhaps advise him. because I think that that will do a lot of good to former President Rawlings' own image. No, let me, it's an important point. I say this because for some time now, and I'm quite close to the former president. I mean, I'm not talking as somebody who is just criticizing. The former president has told me before, earlier this year, that we must all help President Akufo-Addo in his fight against corruption. And that is why I'm also telling him that it doesn't look like President Akufo-Addo is the type of president we can help because of his own posture. And I'm doing this in a very genuine way because, you see, as the founder of the current opposition party, in fact, we have all witnessed and even applauded the former president for even criticizing and taking on his own party. So how come that now there is an opposition, what is an opponent in government, and 2 years on, with the, I mean, we have had the biggest number of scandals, I will say, in the shortest time in our country's history. And that is the reason why I think that the former president and founder of the NDC should take advantage of his current relationship, cordial relationship with the President Akufo-Addo, and advise him that he is leading the ship of state into deep, troubled waters, and that it is time to change course.
Okay, Mr. Batidam, we'll come to you on the second topic. Well, you had Mr. Daniel Batidam. Before I come to Emmanuel Wilson for his thoughts, let me just read a couple of the messages you've been sending us. Kujuchum Buafo says, Sana, I do not understand why your panelists keep telling us that the president doesn't know about the corruption in his government. He is a willing and able initiator, participant and purveyor of the first-string corruption that has engulfed the MPP government. Well, this one coming from King Farouk in Kaswa. First, he says, happy birthday, my brother. May Almighty God continue to bless you year after year. Protection, guidance, and good health is what I ask. Mauso Bolisa for you. May you age in grace, wisdom. Amen. Thank you very much, King Farouk. But then you go ahead and say, Nyantechi, $12 million. Drones, $12 million. Oslo, Norway, $12 million. Smuggle fertilizer, $12 million. The elephant has a huge appetite for stealing and corruption. They are chopping large gluttons in power. May heaven liberate this country from this nation wreckers in 2020. That's coming from King Farouk. A couple more of your messages that you're sending through our WhatsApp platform, 0233-995905. You can also share your thoughts with us using that number through WhatsApp. And this one from Dawood in Dodowa Forest. Inside Dodowa Forest, it says, good morning, Senator. Please, does Nana get briefing from his ministers at all? When JDM told him and Baolaya that they have no mortal right to criticize him, they did not understand. And now it has dawned on them. At least we now know the difference between real president and a fake president. Well, this one from Kwame to CM says, Senator, good morning to you. Honorable Blackwell, don't mind those calling names. After all, we know the type of degrees they were awarded. Kwame CBT Ahafo Achwing says, it's time Ghanaians should say enough is enough and come together to wipe all these MPP members from the country. MPP government always deceiving Ghanaians, but they can't deliver their numerous promises. And this one says, hi, Mr. Host. This one is from Philip Adika, a.k.a. Odaseni from Italy, says, hi, Mr. Hope and your team. Verily, verily, he who does good needs to be rewarded. And therefore, Honorable Okujeto, a.k.a. Jokanagbole, deserves to be rewarded by President Nana Akufo-Addo because he has demonstrated to be a true citizen, as he, the president, told us to be at the initial stage he took office. Failure for the president rewarding Honorable Kujeto Ablakwa may mean he, the president, is part of the dubious deal. I believe there might be similar ones. You dive deeper and you see marvelous things. It's high time we say no to Chop Ghana. My regards to Mr. Kwesi Pratt. Well, this one coming from is a repetition of the one from the man from Dodowa Forest. Honorable Blackwell, You are really a genius, and God bless you for saving Ghana from this evil and thievery government. We, the youth of Ghana, are very proud of you. You have exposed the family and friends thievery government, and indeed, we have a square peg in a round hole government who are only empowered to loot and share the Ghana purse. Haja Ruki in New York sent that. Charles Nami and Asamankese says the corruption and thievery under this government is so glaring and weird. In just 2 weeks, Akufo-Addo and his brigade have been caught in 3 different scandals, trying to rape the state coffers of a whopping 1.8 trillion old cedis. Now, it's clear the old man just wanted to become president. He has nothing better to offer Ghanaians, and you only believe him at your own risk. And this one, Eric Okonu at La Paz says, Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa is a fine gentleman who is intelligent and confident in the Parliament House. I like the way he exposed the foreign minister with the bogus transactions. Honorable Okujeto, we the Voltarians are proud of you. He goes ahead to say, in fact, media encounter with Mr. President was poor and a waste of taxpayers' money. Why Mr. President only spoke for 71 minutes and gave only 17 minutes to journalists to ask questions. Chia, this is below the belt. Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, keep on exposing the lies about the MPP in the Parliament. And this one from Doris in Church says, peace be unto you, my brother. I wish you and your guests Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance. I just want to ask a very serious question. Which card are the voters going to use to vote for the division of the regions? Is it the voters' ID card or the Ghana card? And secondly, what is exactly happening in Parliament? A woman has now turned herself into King Kong, beating up men. The president is there congratulating her. And the MPP too, and the MPP members too, who claim everything is going on fine. So they keep on lying on all radio stations. They are being invited. So should also be very careful. Eyes are watching. This one from Baba Abotari in Shaliboshe St. Peter says, our president has been consistently inconsistent. I thought the president said he was not going to respond to aspirants, but they meet the press, which will be in history as the West was to respond to Prophet John Mahama on the drone issue. So now the president has redefined corruption. The Oslo Chancery issue as the minority requested investigation. He rubbishes it. Our president is not on top of the issues confronting us as Ghanaians. He should stop the arrogance because we are watching his body language. And this one says, hi, comrades. Kudos to our Honorable Kujeto together with our humble MPs. Keep on checking on them properly. That's how they are. President Nana-Addo must quickly act on the misbehavior of Madam Ayokobocho in Parliament, and more especially the overbloating of the price in Oslo property. Nana-Addo must sack her immediately for corrupt attitude. This time, no clearance. From Black Joe in Nima. Musa Abato and Kumasi says, Senna, I had the opportunity to read evidence given by Okujeto Ablakwa. I find it difficult to understand the tantrums thrown by Kuku Bako as well as President Akufo-Addo when at the meet the press and sought to question the credibility of the allegation. If President Akufo-Addo thinks this unprecedented scandal is not worth investigating, then those who believe he's incorruptible must revive their thinking. If this is how he is committed to fight corruption, then taxpayers' money will continue to go down the drain. Ghana deserves better. And this one from Ni Bote from Nungwa Kukobi says, please tell Okujeto to stop being charitable on this Oslo matter, because everyone can see that this is a plot to create loot and share. Simple. And this one, Efo Ganyo in Qatar says, hi, Senna. Akufo-Addo and corruption in Ghana. When the so-called bus branding saga broke under President Mahama, Honorable Akua-Tivo voluntarily resigned a position as Minister of Transport and took responsibility for the actions of the office. Even though it was clear from all accounts that the deal was done on her blind side. On the contrary, Nana Akufo-Addo always clears all his appointees of every corrupt act. We are fed up with this president's lip service. Now, finally, Sir Prince in Amanasi says this corrupt government has attempted several times to steal our money, but kudos to my able Okujeto Ablakwa and the minority for their vigilance. So say no to this corrupt government in 2020. Hashtag PCG Homecoming. Sir Prince Amanasi sent that one. Before I move to Mr. Wilson, if you're seeking to sell or buy a car, be it used or brand new or registered, you can visit the Ghana Trade Fair Center today and tomorrow. Today, 22nd and 23rd December, that'll be tomorrow, to partake in the Vehicle Fair 2018. They will exhibit well-known brands of cars for you to choose from. Now, also available will be various spare parts on display. So if you want to buy spare parts too, so be at the trade fair today and tomorrow, and you can get some to buy. Vehicle Fair 2018 is brought to you by buyoneon1.com. Buyoneon1.com, where properties sell fast. You can call them on 0270 940 324, 0270 940 324, and also 0302 300 472. Mr. Wilson.
Sana, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me be quick to seek your leave to express a Merry Christmas to our viewers and our listeners. Let me do same to Reverend Fred Digby, who is with the Calvary Baptist Church at Abraka, and mention same to a very good friend who is in Bahamas and has been very good to me throughout this year, Letitia Fowler.
Okay.
All old students of St. Thomas Aquinas, particularly our president, who is listening to you, President John Bolenyo, and O.T. Samuel Anaglate. I can't do without mentioning same to my family, and so I want to wish them a Merry Christmas. But of course, the most important one is the family I have here on Alhaji And Alhaji show. All the co-panel members we've engaged in throughout the year, Prof, you can name them, all of them, all of them. I want to thank them for the exchange of ideas and the opportunity to learn some things from them. It's so great. Sana, yourself, and our boss, Patrick, Pub MC,
Yes.
his passion is extremely
It's unbelievable.
admirable. You have no idea. And I believe that the management of Radio Gold will want to hold Patrick in a very high esteem because his passion for this station and its activities is beyond. I'm honestly, is beyond, so let us see how to appreciate people when they are alive, other than giving them tributes when they are gone. It doesn't really gel. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, I'm going to be very brief on this topic because extensively it has been discussed, particularly by the one who initiated this whole issue or brought it to the public domain, so that we can have enough time and discuss the other two topics which are equally important and very, very important. Now, in being very brief on this, I will want to look at it from a very broader perspective. If you recall, and Ghanaians, it's important that as we move on, we try to remind ourselves of the past and remind ourselves of where we are coming from, where we are, so to inform us on where we should be, particularly as we prepare towards the 2020 election. Prior to the 2016 election, some of the things that I believe strongly became the trump card, the strong messages of the then Mr. Akufo-Addo, who was the flag bearer. And I believe strongly that there were some of the things that informed the decisions of majority of Ghanaians to vote for him to become the president and to be called His Excellency as we call him now, all right? Now, there were so many promises and so many things that he said. But one of it which was very key to me is found in, if you look at November 7, 2016 Daily Guide paper, November 7, 2016. That was when, before the election, so in his campaign tour, one of the things he said was that I will protect the public purse. That's what he said. Now, in saying, he said this at, so he says the presidential or the MPP standard bearer made this clear when he addressed residents at Ateku, a community in the Wassa East constituency of the Western region. This is just one part of it. But if you were following closely all the activities of the various political parties. Of course, as a leader in a political party, all the opponents, their activities were so interesting and dear to me, so I needed to follow them. There was particularly no instance, averagely no instance, where you will hear the then flag bearer of the NPP, now the president, addressing people, electorates, without him making reference to the fact that he wants to protect the public purse. He kept saying it over and over and over. So it was something that he himself believed in so much. And that is why I was not surprised when his very first communication he made when he assumed office as president, his very first official presidential communication, which took place during the inauguration when he was being sworn in as president at the Independence Square. He reiterated, he mentioned the same thing. So if you make reference to January 9th, 2017 publication of the Daily Graphic, it says, "I will protect public purse." And I quote, "I shall protect the public purse by insisting on value for money in all public transactions." So the president's definition of protecting the public purse from this statement is that he's going to ensure there's value for money in all public transactions that takes place under this government. He's going to do same. If you also visit the website of 3news.com, January 7th publication 2017, "I will insist on value for money to protect the public purse," says the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And so this is the background. This is one of the key things that brought in the president, you know, that transformed him from just being a flag bearer to being His Excellency. And so if we want to assess the president, it is just fair that we assess the president by his own standard that he gave us, because we voted him based on the standard he gave us. He said he was going to protect the public purse. Now the president is in office. We want to ensure or to assess whether the president has indeed misled us or has indeed been truthful. And for us to be sure whether he has misled us or has been truthful, it is just important we compare him or assess him by his own standard and by his own marking scheme. He says he will protect the public purse. That is the marking scheme of the president. We have forgotten that this issue that has become a topic, all of us are discussing it right from early days of this week. We've all been discussing it on so many platforms, radio station, granting interviews and all that. We've been talking about this. This should not be perceived as something new. It shouldn't be perceived as something which is unique, something that is now happening under this government. If you remember, a similar thing has taken place over and over and over under this government. Mind you, all these arguments is on the basis that the president himself promised us prior to he becoming a president, that when he becomes a president, he's going to protect the public purse. And what he meant by protecting the public purse is that he's going to ensure that there's value for money in all public transactions. You remember Ministry of Agric, where they decided to do a planting for food job, and they used 10 million Ghana cedi to purchase an so-called 4 armyworm chemical in 2017. Now, they used an amount of 10 million Ghana cedi. Just after a period, it came out that the chemical that they went to purchase were ineffective. In other words, the 10 million Ghana cedi is gone waste. One is wondering whether it amounts to value for money, whether it amounts to protecting the public purse. Again, if you look at the same Ministry of Agric, and I'm making reference to 2017, the same Ministry of Agric, 8 million Ghana cedi was used just for publicity. public education on 4 armyworm infections. Publicity. I am not sure whether you are in the media. I'm not sure the number of times you heard of such publicity in the media dome, because I never heard a single one, not even a single one. I made checks with friends in NCC, because if you want any publicity to take place and for it to be very effective, there's no better structure to use than the structures of the NCC. And on authority, I can tell you that they had no idea of the so-called publication or publicity that took place. 8 million Ghana cedi was just used to announce to farmers and to educate them on the 4 armyworm that affected a lot of crops and affected a lot of farms in 2017. Till date, no one knows what kind of publicity took place, and yet we have spent 8 million of the taxpayers' money, 8 million Ghana cedi, on a so-called publicity that we have no idea of. I'm wondering whether that amounts to the protection of the public purse that the president came out to mention. Now, again in 2018, the 2018 budget, you will remember very well, when some of the budgets, departmental budgets that came, particular one came from a ministry, a very new ministry, called the Ministry of Special Development Initiative, all right? Now, this ministry said they were going to construct 1,000 borehole, okay? 1,000 borehole. And the unit cost, in other words, for you to construct a borehole, one was going to cost 132,000 Ghana cedi. 132,000 Ghana cedi to construct a borehole. You and I know that our colleagues and friends who are engaged in borehole drilling and all that, if you engage them, they will tell you that you don't need beyond 25 or 30,000 Ghana cedi to drill one borehole. And yet, a government and a president that says he's interested in protecting the public purse decided that they are going to use 132,000 Ghana cedi as against 25 or 30,000 Ghana cedi that can be used. They were going to do that. I'm still wondering if that constitutes, or that is what the president meant when he said he was going to protect the public purse, or he was going to ensure that there's value for money. In going on, the same ministry told us that they needed 800,000 Ghana cedi to develop a website. And it was in the budget, 2018 budget, 800,000 Ghana cedi to develop a website. Websites, which all of us know, we all run organizations and all that. And all of us know that sometimes you don't even need more than 2,000 or 3,000 to develop a website. And yet, Ministry for Special Development Initiative, under a president who promised all of us that he needs our votes, and that when we give him our vote, he's going to protect the public purse. And he's going to do that by ensuring that there's value for money. This is the same president under whose watch a ministry, which is a new ministry he has set up, comes to us, requests for 800,000 Ghana cedi just to develop a website. I have heard instances where individuals are quick, anytime this particular issue is raised, are quick to say that, oh, when it was brought out, they recognized that it was a typo, and so they needed to go and change it. What people are not realizing is that when the ministry and the government indicated that it was a typo error, someone added some zeros to it, and it was just during the typing. The person did it without any malice. The truth of the matter is that the 2018 budget was approved without amendments made to this figure. So in reality, whether it was a typo or it was not a typo, 800,000 Ghana cedi has been approved, officially has been approved for the 2018 budgets. You understand? That, again, the president wants us to believe that this is the meaning of protecting the public purse. Let me just try and just mention one or two other areas just to refresh our minds. You remember the communications ministry, 2.5 million Ghana cedi, sorry, $2.5 million used for the Ghana Post GPS deal. When their own financier, one of their leading members, Kennedy Japan, came out and said that this thing could have been done with less than half the cost. Yet $2.5 million was used for this GPS Ghana Post deal. Address system which already exists through Google. We used 2.5 million for that. Look at the other one, which the National Identification Authority. $1.2 billion is what has been used. $1.2 billion is what has been used for this National Identification Authority. Funny enough, just when this amount was approved, weeks on, their reference to the same person I mentioned earlier on, Kennedy Japan, came out and said that, look, this government is using $1.2 billion. This NIA identification card, I have investors and I have individuals who have done all the assessments, the cost analysis, and they have presented to me that we can use $50 million, $50 million, as against $1.2 billion. I have presented this budget to the authorities of NIA, and they decided to ignore it. To date, there hasn't been any explanation given to that. Is that what we mean by value for money? When the president told us that that is what he wanted to do. And so you see, there are so many other things I can make reference to. But as I indicated, for time's sake, with all this in mind, when you look at what just transpired at this Oslo discussion or agreement, one is not so much surprised, because there has been practical examples and there has been practical instances where the president has communicated to us that even though he told us that he's in to protect the public purse, through his own actions, he is not really committed to that promise. Neither does he really appreciate what it means to seek value for money in public transactions. I'm not surprised this issue has come out. But truth be told, when this issue came up, I first heard Osei Mensah, Honorable, and I shared with him perfectly that why not? The number one duty of Parliament is to ensure that they are playing a supervisory role, particularly on the executive wing of our government. And so if Parliament, executive brings a policy, brings a budget, whatever, it is the duty of Parliament to scrutinize and to identify where the faults are and refer it back to executive for executive to make all those amendments. All right? And so if this transaction comes to Parliament and it has been raised, just like Osei Mensah said, we need to put a hold on this and then do a further interrogation. It is possible that the minister or individuals who are supposed to be involved are not even aware of this. We may want to give them that benefit of the doubt, even though they've been paid to do their work. Let's assume that though they are being paid, they are still sleeping on their job, and yet we pay them. So they may not have even scrutinized this before bringing it to Parliament. The truth is, Parliament has identified it. Let us see how best we can protect the public purse. And that is why I keep saying that, look, if you make reference to history, particularly in the Third Republic, under His Excellency Dr. Hilary Liman, there might be so many reasons for this, but history still has it that Dr. Liman, President Liman, though having majority in Parliament, presented a budget, and the budget was rejected. And to me, that is the state I expect to see Parliament. Then I'll be confident that our institutions are working.
The fact that a particular government of the day has majority in parliament doesn't mean that in all instances majority should have their way. It shouldn't work that way. Then we are not committed to ensuring that our institutions are working. And so this, I was expecting, just like the majority leader came out to applaud, I was expecting that everyone will see that, look, this is not an NPP issue. This is a national interest issue. Let us all see how best we can embrace. Let us all see how best we can identify the wisdom in what has been brought out. Let us see and ensure that the right things are being done. I was really surprised after hearing Oseche Mensah and applauding him. I heard the president trying to, rubbish this. And I wouldn't want to go deep into that because we'll get to it when we get to the encounter. But after hearing the president particularly making comments to this Oslo deal, my mind went a bit closer to those group of thoughts that has been advocating for a ceiling in terms of age for our presidents. We have minimal age that you need to attain before you can contest, and that is 40 years. Some years back, particularly during the constitutional review process, under the late president, His Excellency Atta Mills, there were this group of persons who were advocating for a ceiling, which I didn't really see enthused. I wasn't. Because the reasons they were championing, I didn't really see it to be tangible. But after this encounter, I am beginning to realize that, yes, there's wisdom in that. There is a particular stage you attain in life where, whether you like it or not, your senses will start diminishing. You understand? And so maybe, but as I said, we'll get there. But why? What did I hear them say? The president and the others, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the minister herself, Shirley, saying that no contract has taken place. No deal has taken place. I mean, we haven't had any contract. And the president also went into that argument. And I got myself in a state of confusion. I was like, is this the same president we are told was very good when he was practicing as a lawyer? Because you see, the basic contracts law will tell you that there are two main ingredients. Indeed, there are two main ingredients, but these two main ingredients, for it to be valid, there's a need for a third one. The first one is offer, the second one is acceptance. And the third one that makes offer and acceptance valid is consideration. And what is consideration? Look at the agreements. Look at the where is the other document? The one that has the detail, the terms. Yes, thank you. Now, consideration is simply an exchange for performance or promise. So if you offer this, and I say, okay, I'm interested in it. Or I say, okay, let me consider it. But in considering it, I want you to change the color from this to something else. Impliedly, I have accepted it. There's a valid contract. That is the basic definition of consideration. In other words, if I tell you that you tell me you are offering this, and I say, okay, I accept it, or expressly, I do not even tell you I've accepted it. We have implied acceptance. But I move further and I say that, well, I want you to change the color first. And you start changing the color. Impliedly, acceptance has taken place. Impliedly, consideration has taken place. And people who are doubting me, in the year 1959, in the UK, the House of Lords made a determination on a case which has become a landmark case, particularly in the field where consideration, offer, acceptance, and basic contract is concerned. Anyone who has a computer, who has access to internet, should Google Chapel and Co. Limited versus Nestle Company Limited. Chapel and Co. Limited versus Nestle Company Limited. Read the facts, read the judgment as to whether contract has taken place or not, and make reference or compare those facts to the current agreements in this, with particular reference to point 4, which says the purchaser requires the residents to have the following work performed by the seller prior to take over. And the following issues are the things that the purchaser requires the seller to do, which I won't go into it because it has already been gone through. Let us ask ourselves whether or not, as we speak, that said property, this requirement by the purchaser, whether they are being enforced or not. From cross-checking, it is clear that this requirement that the purchaser, being the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, requested the seller to make, which is the consideration I made reference to. As we speak, it is ongoing. What it means is that even though the minister says she has placed a hold on this, she didn't say she has abrogated it. She has placed a hold on it. I'm telling you, the minister knew what she was saying. If the minister had said, I have abrogated it, she knows that it will amount to judgment debts. So why would a president whom all of us have been made to believe that he is a great lawyer, at least that is what we are told, with all these fundamentals and basic principles, will come and tell all of us that no contract has taken place? It doesn't gel. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. But, in concluding, I will also want to commend the minority. Commend my brother, Samuel Kujeto, for his vigilance. The truth is, this is what they are being paid to do. You understand? And so, is he doing what he's being paid to do? The answer is yes. If the answer is yes, that's okay. He should close his mind on, critics and individuals who are not applauding him. I am surprised. I have heard him and I've heard a number of minority in parliament speaking to the fact that, if this was some other country, we would have been applauded. We would have been hailed. And I asked myself, and this morning he made the same comment, and I keep asking, are they expecting applause from those in government? Because so far, all individuals I have heard, with the exception of Che Mensah, all individuals I have heard criticizing him and minority are individuals who are in government. So they are forgetting, anytime they are making that comment, they should remember that there is this majority out there who constitute a significant number of our population, who may not have the platform as we have to commend them. But the fact that they are not hearing those persons commending them doesn't mean that Ghanaians are not appreciating that. And so I will want to commend them and still encourage that this is what they are being paid to do. And so they should be focused and they should go on that tangent. But honestly, no Ghanaian should be misled by the conscious, careful drafting of untruth from the president and from some other individuals who constitutes the executive and majority in parliament. The truth of the matter is that this is a contract which is ongoing. The best that can be done is to have a review of it. When we decide to abrogate and stop it, we'll be leading this country into what is called judgment debt. But let us all be mindful of the fact that this is the same president who promised all of us that he is in to protect the public purse. With the short history I have given, just opposing it to what is happening, I think it is best for Ghanaians listening and viewing to make their own decision and conclusion as to whether this president is a president who really believes in what he says.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. And before I come to Prof, this one, Baba Ibrahim, this one, Pab MCGH on Facebook. Viewers have been very active today. And Baba Ibrahim said, Dogo says, I knew Kukubaku will surely defend the Oslo Gate with all his blood because it is denting his beloved government. God is watching all our deeds and we will surely account for it one day. Jerry Ajay says, good morning, Senator. Nanado lied about presidential diaries. He also lied about the Kaswa interchange as opposition leader. What is more desperation than this? And this one, Alhaji Haruna in Ashaman says, Senator, the media encounter with Nana Akufo-Addo has exposed his incompetence. Baba Ibrahim said, Dogo says once again, the Oslo Gate minister says she has discarded the plans to buy the building on the floor of Parliament. And I ask, is she terminating the arrangement to buy the building with her mouth or by official documents showing termination? Ghanaians deserve better from the Oslo Gate minister. I've read Nana Tutu Osei says, good morning. With this one, it says it's a tune for the convener of Crossfire Ghana. It says, what is wrong with the NPP? Do you remember the cash for seats, a Jacko Gate, etc.? We admitted a Norwegian newspaper report on a Mary in Parliament, but can't admit same on the Oslo Gate. Hypocrisy. Let's put our acts together. NDC, we can't fail Ghanaians in 2020. This one coming from Prosper Mensah says, Senna, good morning. Congratulations to my senior brother, Ablakwa Okujeto. I am NDC branch chairman for some reasons. I will not mention the name of my branch. My wife had gone through operation delivery, and I spent all the money I have on me. Well, he's asking for help. I think I'll pass it on. Kweku Badman says that what both the minority and Ghanaians should understand is that the NPP believe they own the country, and all its wealth and resources are theirs by rights. For this reason, whenever they are in government, they plunder the country's coffers with impunity, and it says they are only acting in the people's interest. Unfortunately, we have a weak minority which cannot stand up to their onslaught, and therefore the TV and MPP always have their way. I'll be surprised if this transaction is truncated. Let's see if by the end of 2019, Ghana Embassy in Norway is not operating from the same edifice. Samba Adamo says, Nana Akufo-Addo is a liar, Baumia is a liar, Madam Bocho is a liar. Mustafa Hamid is a liar, Osla also is a liar, and all the entire MPP party members are pathological liars. And a bit more, there's a lot happening, and there's a lot of conversation between the people who are watching us on Facebook. And Herbert Kerr says that, and what is shocking is that Akufo-Addo is defending this rotten corruption. Isn't it shocking? George Nikwe says, watching my favorite program live from Japan on Facebook. Honorable Ablakwa, well done for your good work in Parliament. We, the NDC members in Japan, love you and your good work for Mother Ghana. And still have to go through a lot to find those that are directed at me. And Kito Samo says the speaker was reluctant and took part in the thief's mission, period. And so I'm still struggling to find the ones that are directed at me because they are conversing among themselves. Prof.
I wish today's event were like an open conference room session where I would be sitting among the panel and enjoying, perhaps in this case, your air-conditioned environment, because it is almost 11:45.
Fortunately, we do have a bit of an extension. So,
well, be that as it may, I think Honorable Okujeto, if the first topic were exclusively allotted to him, and then inferences or comments therefrom to Honorable Bachidam and then my colleague, Comrade Wilson, I would just say I concur. And truly, even if we have extension of time, first of all, his expose, brilliant work, and we've commended him, and we urge him on to continue because the future is ahead of him with God's grace. But it should now be taken up by the main opposition party. It should be an NDC agenda, and for that matter, supported by the rest of the opposition fraternity. Because it sounds as if it was a diligence and his commitment to details of his work that brought out these things. But it should be, in fact, what he had at the time he took very good though, should have been preceded by a press conference with all these documents for people to know what is happening. And I think Comrade Bachidam also made very, very good points about issues that border on morality, honesty, you see, and the truthfulness, as he indicated when the former President Rawlings met the religious leaders about the divinity of that noble, what do you call, virtue. You know, when I come to this studio, I used to make I have some phraseology, and I say order and disorder. When you read the Bible, and kind permission to others of a different religious faith and beliefs, you see the orderliness of nature. And they say in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and went on subsequently. And at the end of it all, he realized that, look, let me get somebody in my image, and created our first father, and then from which we had our first mother. And then he blessed them and itemized all that he had created and said, I entrust them to you. Say, take good care and let everything that I have given to you prosper. Those with life organ prosper, those without, then a different matter. And I come here and also raise this rhetorical, perhaps comical issue that on that day when he entrusted everything that he had created, that authority, dominion, was there a Japanese? Or our first father, was he a Japanese? Was he an American? Was he a German? Was he a French? Etc. The countries whose democracies we aspire to, those where we look up for their state of development. I think they say the beginning itself, the whole universe was void. So any state of infrastructural development, socio-cultural advancement, consciousness had come from the very people, and perhaps taking cue from the command and the blessing and authority he gave to our first father that had translated into millions of years, if we only know the time when the universe was created. You see, simple as this discussion might sound, it's very, very divine. And we go to church. Muslims went to mosque, Jummah yesterday, and everything that is, if the imam is preaching, what will transpire tomorrow is all about orderliness, truthfulness, virtues. Even if you emphasize on wrongdoing, is to contrast so that you know what is ahead of us. And so when I come here, I always ask this question that, is this the sort of governance system that the revolution brought forth? So the constitution that's like a judgment, or rather our code, our creed, to guide the way we govern ourselves or our way of life, is that document good or not? And is the practitioners, are they okay or they are not okay? Which I don't know. But you see, Shakespeare says that there's no art to read the mind's construction from the face. That's sacred. But at least when we look at our faces too, we can count on age. And so Comrade and I, obviously, without any margin of error, will be older than Senna and then Comrade Wilson. You know, when you grow, and that's my personal conviction, that even I know people, we knew people who were, pardon me, crooks. But when you age and you are nearing your end, you know, we will one day die. And by the rule of thumb, it's elderly people who leave the stage. We should leave the stage for you as our fathers, and it might not always be you driving and you see what a shock, 31 years, 39 years, 25. When I read those things and I saw vehicles ahead of me, some chill goes through my spine. I said, why? What's happening? You see, but generally, we the elderly folks, we leave the stage by the sheer age of what you, or the phenomenon of senescence. We grow like any natural body. As you age, you may be nearing your end and the life cycle continues. And so you feel, having been in active politics or partisan politics, and but the Comrade Batidan said I should tell people, you know, we don't have the luxury of opportunity and time where we are. And so we shouldn't give politics a bad name. Yeah. I mean, it's partisan, you want to advance your interests, etc. But beyond the point. And if you permit me, let me stray a bit into the second, because I wouldn't have much time. You time me 5 minutes, let me end, and let's listen to others. Today I want to be a spectator and not a citizen. You see, let's look at facts of this country. And comrade, you've transcended this country, all of us. I mean, if you look at the state, and I'm saying I'm from Osu here in Accra, but look at Accra, then take a reflection all over the country. And so anybody who is in government, and for that matter a president, is not a joke. But we have reduced politics, and it's been with us from the 50s and all over, to paternalistic approach. So we want to give you a Zongo ministry, and then the Minister for Zongo Affairs, who just took over some few months ago, goes to Medina and goes to commission an AstroTurf. And those of us with Zongo origin, for goodness sake. And Nima may rank among the chief Zongos. Do you know what happens there? I go to Medina Market now. Let it be a little rain. Traders are, you see, they are in mad. Medina, yeah. Go to Abubulushin. So you have all these 260-something districts, and each of these Zongos are within districts. There's a common fund which you have put a cap on, so the common fund itself is not achieving its maximum resource base to distribute to the assemblies. Then you create a Zongo ministry, so you have an establishment with a minister with good remuneration. And what has happened in 2 years? You had a 4-year mandate. You understand? And politics had come to a point that Mukwaba, so undo who is there with all manner of statements to convince the electorate to vote for you, and you come and you want to justify it. Listen to the president when the question was asked. And I listen to, I don't watch him, I don't watch the video to look at his demeanor, but the vehemence underlying the voice tone, we have been able to pay $1.2 billion that was. So already there is an act of your predecessor doing something wrong. So as happened in President Kufuor's time, oh, you say we've stolen 10 cities, but NDC stole 12 cities. So it means you have done something better. And it has run through, and you can see that. I think the same press conference or another forum earlier on, when the statement was made, that same press conference about guinea fowls in that sarcastic context. I mean, for goodness sake, 2 years into a 4-year mandate. You understand? Look, the kids came home, the free kids came home on Thursday and yesterday. And when I heard former President Mahama, when he filed his papers, he made a statement. He said he will maintain the free SHS. I said, we're discussing, but when I listened to the soundbite, look, anybody vying for the position must be bold to say that when I win, I will revise or review this system. It is not helping anybody. You help anybody or help those who really need help, but not in this ramshackle state. The children have come home, interview them. Some of them, the 8 subjects that they are reading, they hardly had 2 weeks. Those who went gold in November, 6-7 weeks in school, they could not get teachers to teach many of the subjects
core and elective. You understand? And ask parents whether the 800 or 600 that the GES has stipulated for feeding, whether that itself had translated into something good. The Association of Private Senior High Schools told you from the beginning that they have 290 senior high schools, which can take over 200,000 students. So let's forget about partisans. So Yi block was not good, so you forgot about it. That itself cannot be tenable. But because of this, the Form 2s who have come home are going in March. So if you are a parent, what happens to your child? So you had free 600 and something feeding free, and then your child comes home for 3 months, and you are going to send that child to roam about, if that's an option for you as a parent, or to go to remedial to spend more money. So this system must be reviewed and reviewed properly. Deputy Minister, former Deputy Minister for Education, he will tell you, majority of the students who get to the, even let's say, take about 100 top schools, are from the preparatory schools. So I have an issue if you mean well with limited resources. And I say my child went to Bishop Bowers. Then my child goes to Adisadel. Then you, a president, you take it upon yourself to say, I will feed your child free, whether you can pay or not. And because of that, you are squeezing water out of stone, affecting everybody. And look, this can of drink you've given us, Votic, sorry to mention name, you put a stamp on it. This is how much you need money. Very good that way to maximize revenue collection. But we pensioners and others who don't work, you are squeezing, putting a cap on common fund, get fund that is supposed to provide infrastructure and other support services for educational institutions. You have put constraints because of a decision that you want free SHS. Is it sustainable? The children have come home. Some from 2 who have come home are still in their old white shirt and khaki trousers because you have not provided money for the schools to even get them their uniform. And what have you replaced? Ask a parent who has a child in Form 3 or who have just finished and entered university against those who are in Form 2 and Form 1. And I can tell you on authority that it was even cheaper when they were paying fees because the schools took the initiative. Uniform, you went there, you paid the fees, you went to the store, you collected everything because they've gotten bales of materials, mass production, and it's far cheaper. You've taken on this responsibility, and it's as if it's a paternalistic approach. I'm president, I'll provide for you. Whether you like it or not, it is good. That is paternalism. That is what is happening with our politics. So, Zongo Minister, look, I said I'm of the Nima origin, and I know Nima very well. You get to Nima from the Kanda area. The young guys themselves, those who were fortunate to travel and mobilize some little resources, virtually have rehabilitated the whole environment, cementing spaces and walkways all over by themselves. What they need there is opportunity provided by the assembly or from government. The minister, a guy calls into the program every morning and he says, look, the drainage system from Kaokudi all through, that was initiated by, in fact, was constructed by President Mohammed's government. It's still in the state in which it was, and Vice President Baumia just leaves a stone throw across the street in Kanda. The president himself says he lives at Nima. Do we need a Zongo ministry? What does the Zongo ministry accomplish? What do you call it? Latebi Okoshin here. Your streets, have they been paved? Go through many. It's worse as you go up country. And so, you see, what is setting in is impunity. And Comrade Wilson, it's clear that you want to put a cap, but to be fair to aging, it is not everybody who has aged who has lost his conscience. You understand? And I am beginning to believe that the division that led into the president winning his party's flag bearership slot had persisted. And I can bet you that there are brains within the NPP who have been distanced from the administration. Willy-nilly, you cannot even go to 2 years down the stream. You cannot. President Kufuor didn't suffer that. He used everybody, including even the current president. But this is something that has set in. And of course, I pray, I'm just reading a piece here. The ranking, or is it the chairman of your Foreign Affairs Committee? He said that there was no agreement between the ministry and the buyer. All these points have been made, and all of a sudden, they put in the heat on our young honorable, that he was just trying to create in fact, there's something, he claimed that Mr. Blackwell, by that conduct, had become a nuisance, in quote, to Parliament, and that his committee will know how to manage him. You see the condescending contempt. You see, and that is the question mark I raise about the practitioners, whether the majority that they have, you see, had now overcome them, their complacency, arrogance, and impunity has set in. This is something that we have to take note of. So here is a country where we say 50 million drone is okay. I fortunately happen to have a student who I'm teaching now from Rwanda. It's a mountainous area. If it's been implemented, you don't know the circumstances. Medical experts associations are telling you, and I feel one guy even said that the Minister for Health, or rather the Chief Director, or rather the Director General of the Ghana, whether what he is proposing, he himself will allow blood transfusion to happen under that community. And in this country where you have 267 districts, and every district is supposed to have a district capital with roads leading, and if there's a district hospital, do you need drones? But here is a country where the president justifies the 50 million. He says it's fantastic. It's not only to carry blood, but you just returned from Japan, where you went to beg for money to rehabilitate roads, and the Japanese are going to do that because they constructed the Yamuranza to Cape Kumasi Road, and they will do that. Then you can afford to take a quarter of that money to go and engage in drone service. You can also afford to take 1/5 of that money to go and buy an embassy or a chancellery. The celebrities of Hollywood and the sports and the musicians who even have money, look at the property they buy in Hollywood. In California, expensive places with maybe 10 acres. It's not up to 4 million. That is US for you. Celebrities, Michael Jackson, etc. Maybe 4-acre ranch, and it's not up to $4 million. And here you are begging for money. I always say, 1 kilometer road, you go and kneel down and beg. If there is a grant to this country at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you see flags flying. That is the extent to which we appreciate any little money that we have. And you can afford to spend money this way, for goodness sake. Morality, without morality, there's no society. You see, and where good character and good morals will take you, your knowledge, wealth, and might will not take you. And I think politicians must begin to let us know that there's truthfulness and decency in politics. And for me, 2020, that will be, we will judge people by the content of their character and not what they profess to say. You can lie yourself into government, make somebody to look bad. I sit back and I say, so President Mahama too, all these things that they are saying about you, is it true? I'm still confounded to date because there's nothing for me to say that the President Mahama was corrupt. But they painted that picture and that made people to believe. And that's what we are reaping today. But you know, order will always establish order. And that is what I believe we shall be heading to in 2020. Thank you. I think I'll finish my entire submission. I will listen to the colleagues. The air condition must be turned on.
So you can enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Let me just read a couple of your messages. This one is from Stephen Covenanter. Says, Senna, happy birthday to you on this special day. May you enjoy your just sufficient grace. Thank you very much.
Oh, you hid it from us. So you didn't give it, and then somebody from outside rather. Okay, we
just
also had
us you
our
are
voice.
91 today. I mean,
So today is what, 22nd, eh?
Yeah, 22nd.
Oh, Christmas. Your mother did it too early. You should have waited 3 days for you to become
I don't think it's the
Christmas.
He was too eager to come. He was too eager to come.
Well, he continues by saying, on the issues for discussion, how come that these people who claim to so much to have competence and love to read are the ones who are always making mistakes? And how come that these mistakes are always only seen by the supposed incompetent NDC members of parliament who don't love to read, according to Baunia? The Jaco millions were discovered by the minority. The 880,000 CDs for websites were discovered by the minority. The $12 million was discovered by the NDC minority. Interestingly, all this metamorphosized into mistakes. So if we had passed all these transactions for the use of these huge sums of money, would they have brought back balances? It's so unfortunate that those who were loud yesterday over allegations are so dead silent on factual cases of corruption that this Akufo-Addo government. Have a wonderful morning, you too. And Akugri Rashid from Boku says, good morning, sir, and happy birthday to you. Honorable Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa is always on the nail with national issues, and I adore his stance. Tell him to stand firm and ignore his critics. And let me go to our WhatsApp page. Says, good morning, Senator. Tell Honorable Sami that he is doing well. God bless him and protect him for us. Please tell him that in 2016 election, I was praising him and GM. My boss, I was working with SAC. I was working. Well, I'm not. It was not. It's not so clear, but he's talking about being sacked. Because he was an MPP man. The money and my shop were taken away from me till now. I don't have a work. He's asking for help. This one, Amasaman Stadium, Ibrahim from Amasaman Stadium Road says, good morning, Mr. Host. I want you to tell NDC delegates from branch, constituency, and regional that 2020 elections is going to be World Cup final for we NDC members. They should not leave any stone unturned. And says, when countries like Norway are closing down embassies and reducing their visa operations to regional level, this government is opening new ones. What a way to protect the public purse. And this one says, Senator, good morning to you and your cherished listeners around the world. The clear daylight robbery mounted on the good people of Ghana by His Excellency President Akufo-Addo and his 110 rebels is unprecedented. Plain thievery, stealing, grabbing, create loot and sharing. No president in the Fourth Republic dispensation has come to amass wealth through dubious and criminal ways like this Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government. Let's wake up all progressives and positive and all well-meaning Ghanaians to boot out this super incompetent President Akufo-Addo come 2020. That's from Habib and Sawam. Obed Ashaiman Jericho says, good morning, Senator. I congratulate my honorable Samo from the land that the people hated for exposing the looting Christmas gift to foreign minister and party members. For the president and the speaker of parliament, only God that can help Ghanaians to come out from the bondage we are in. This one says, Ghanaians and the speaker must applaud the Honorable Ablakwa and NDC minority in parliament for this expose. Instead of being vilified by the speaker, elsewhere in the USA, the speaker would have resigned for making those comments against the ranking member. As at now, the speaker, Paul Ryan of USA, has resigned to retirement from the House because he said he could no longer defend President Trump against America because the evidence of allegations against him are all becoming scandalous and disgrace to the Republican Party and government. And not him alone, 2 ministers, including security advisor, have resigned from the Trump government. And so let's think of Ghana and not the president. The majority should know that they are in parliament for their constituents and not Nanado. If it's in the USA, the FDA would have taken the case for investigation without the FBI would have taken the case for investigation without any interference, with all evidence exposed by the ranking member, Haji Aruki in New York, sends that. And this one says, hi, Radio Gold. Ghana is seriously bleeding and will collapse very soon if responsible people in the country sit down and consent and allow Nana Akufo-Addo, the president, to continue governing the way he is doing. Responsible professionals in the country must advise the president to know the bad effects of the way he's going. Prevention is always better than cure. We want to live united and in peace. That's from Kweku in Accra. And Baba from Belgrove, Antiaqua North. Good morning, Senator. This man, the president himself has said he was misled. And you're asking us to whether he has been misled or not. He has not only misled us, he has in fact lied to us. And that. Let me come to Mr. Batidam for your comments on the second topic, the media encounter.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought we would go back to someone who usually sets a good tone, but since you have ambushed me, I'll make it brief. I think we touched a bit on this issue when we were discussing the first issue about the Oslo Gate. But again, I would like to look at the president's encounter with the media as one of the errors, the many errors perhaps of his handlers, and a clear sign of how organized or disorganized the government itself is. Because from what we know about presidential encounters, the only reason why a government would like to organize a presidential encounter is for the head of state and the leader of the country to respond directly to issues and to put himself accountable directly to the people. Otherwise, we get ministers addressing the press on a regular basis about their various sectors and all that. And so normally, to call a presidential presser, there must be a reason you want, or sometimes there is an issue, an emerging issue that requires the president, or it may also be the case that it is a regularly scheduled thing. For instance, if the president says, I want to have two press conferences or meet the press in a year, then these are also scheduled. In that case, all that involves, the point I'm trying to make is that it would have been planned, foreseen, and if it is not planned or foreseen, it must be something that is arranged in order to respond to a situation that was not anticipated. Now, in all these, you look at both the content of the president's own remarks. I don't want to talk about his lateness and all that. I think other people, I mean, social media and the journalists who were there have already expressed and put on record their protest about the fact that the president came in 30 minutes late and then wanted to leave earlier. But you look first at the content, because that is also what sets the tone for either why the president wants to meet the press, or how his disposition to accountability. And you see, it's, when I say his disposition to accountability, it's a very serious statement I am making. Sometimes people like making gimmicks, pretending as if, oh, I'm an open person. If you have questions, you can ask me. No, you have to look at the content. So already you look at the content of his own statement prior to the questions and answers, and then you get the sign of the tone. And it was in the content that he read before that he talked about, he responded to one of the aspirants of the NDC, which is the former president, by referring to drones. The fact that he prefers to fly drones than guinea fowls to Burkina Faso, completely below the belt, completely unpresidential. Elsewhere, I mean, people would react differently, but Ghanaians are very nice people. We are all still, this was not during the questions and answers time so that you say, okay, maybe he wanted to change the tempo of the thing. No, this was in his statement. The statement that the president had to read, he was talking 2 years into office about not even a factual matter, because this thing about guinea fowls flying to Burkina, it's not. So again, when you talk about tone, it means that if he put that in his address, the whole thing was a joke. It was not a serious business. If he put such a joke
in his address to the media before he takes questions, he certainly sent out a certain kind of signal. Apart from that, of course, he already showed that he is in a combative mood. He is in a belligerent mood. He is coming to fight a perceived enemy. So, you see, I said it earlier that this president will go down as perhaps one of the most divisive in our history. Because, you see, even politics, and I'm not the best of politicians, even politics requires that you try to give some level of pretense that you are no longer, as president of a country, you are a leader and a father of the entire country. But we don't see this in this president. Every single thing of his is about his opponents, he and his opponents. When citizens are complaining about something and their representatives who are in parliament echo the concerns of the citizens, the president narrows it down to his opponents. And I think that again tells us about the kind of leader we unfortunately voted for. But again, what can you do about it? This is the president we have. And again, you go into the interaction itself. And so many times he was like, I don't know what, at some point he was even having an exchange with someone who had asked a question, trying to understand the question. So embarrassing. I was so ashamed. And you see, there is something, it appears, either our president himself that is not aware of, or the government as a body, as an institution is not aware of that. These days, when you hold live activities, they are transmitted globally. So people all over the world are watching our president. And then he's saying, this thing you are talking about, and this thing is not a joking thing. This is something that happened about medical stores. Whilst he was campaigning in 2015, 2016, and there was a whole investigation. And I am sure that during the campaigns, there were even all kinds of issues raised about that issue. But now he becomes head of state, president of our country, and then a journalist comes to make a presentation with giving a whole background about this medical stores issue, and then goes on to make copious reference to a document, including national security report, or at least input, and then wanting to know what has happened since, because it was a big national issue. How did the president become our president without knowing some of these things? How did he become our president without knowing about the medical stores issue and the fact that there was a need for government, whether the past or his, to do something about it? And so, for me, that is the president we have. And if people don't want to be honest with themselves, that is what you get. This is the price we are paying for our lack of honesty, especially in our politics. Because, you see, and then he goes on to ask his ministers. Unfortunately, on this particular issue of the medical stores, he asked a minister who comes to make a presentation which is in tandem with his character of not being factual or truthful, depending on where you look at it from. Because it's the same minister who lied about the state of the medical facility at the University of Ghana. And then the president, who did not know what was going on about this issue, had to ask that minister. And from what we know now, even the minister's presentation were not accurate, because there had been meetings subsequent to a initial thing about that program where Bill Gates people were supposed to come. There was a meeting in August 2017, and you can see the pictures with the minister himself and the president. And the minister could not even give the president any guidance. So you see, we are in deep trouble because it's not only the head that has a problem, but the other parts of the system. And that is a recipe for disaster. Let me make a point just about also his views when he was asked about what he makes of critiques, not criticism. Sometimes people mix these things up. What does he make of critiques of some of his policies? And even as I said, even for political reasons, you can say, well, we think that what we were trying to do is the best we can do for our country, but if others have better opinions or ideas, we are ready to look at them. It's about what they are presenting. No, that is not what our president was coming to tell us. These people are going to continue fabricating things. That was his response. And this time round, and I was happy to hear that one, it was not only about the opposition party, it was also about civil society and the rest. They have nothing to offer. So that is why I'm saying that in the context of what has happened in the last 2 years, which is that generally, I wouldn't say completely that it has been the case, but generally, it seems our civil society groups and sections of the media have given this president too much of a honeymoon. And that is why when I was making my earlier submission, I said, maybe all those who thought that let us give the president a chance should know by now, 24 months into his office, that if he wanted to take any chance, he would have taken it. Because when you are asked about policies and programs that your government is implementing, some of which have challenges that everybody knows about, including those that are supposed to benefit from the policies, the school children, their parents, even the educational stakeholders, teachers, are all pointing to the problem. And they ask you, what are you going to do about it? They are empty noises. You see, modern governance is different. And you see, I use the content, the president's own posture and the things he says to make up my mind about the kind of president we have. This is a president whom, when the National Development Planning Commission, headed by Honorable Kwesi Bochwe, went to hand over to him, I mean, when they had to resign. I don't know whether they were told to resign or they themselves decided. They went to en masse. They went to hand over to him. One would have thought that, oh, thank you for the good work for the country. We would wish that, I would have wished that some of you stayed on so that you can help us with continuity. He said, oh, it's a good decision. You have all decided to go because new king, new law. That is what he said. Okay. So the mindset of the president is something about rulership, not about governance. The mindset of the president we have is that he's a new king, and so he can bring new law. Okay. Mr. President, that is an outmoded concept. New king, new law has no place in modern governance. In the governance we run, even if you are a new king, you have to look at what you take from the king that was there before you. And let me remind him of the words of his friend, Pastor Mensa Otabil. He says, honor your predecessor. I listened to Mensa Otabil last week. He said, honor your predecessor. Anyone who comes, I don't know whether he was speaking to this president or what. He said, anyone who comes and says that what I came to meet is a mess, there's something wrong. Mensa Otabil said that. Okay. That is why I always say, I'm a content man. I don't believe in just speculation. So I was saying, maybe the pastor wants to tell his friend something and he didn't know how to put it, so he used his pulpit and said, honor your predecessor. Stop saying that when I came there was no mess there, because if there was no seat, you wouldn't have come to sit on it. Okay. No. Mr. President, the age matter you people talked about, it's an important matter. We expect a lot more from an elderly person, whether you are president or you are just a parent. We expect a lot more than what we are getting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Batidam. And well, before I come to Mr. Wilson, he actually issued a statement on behalf of the PNC on this issue. And the opening is that the People's National Convention expresses its disappointment in the outcome of the just ended presidential encounter with the media, and for that matter, the public. Is dated on the 19th. That's some hours after the briefing. So immediately the briefing ended, you had made up your mind.
The briefing ended on the 18th. 19th was a day after.
A day after?
Yes.
Okay. It will continue by saying, during the session, the president did communicate clearly through his actions and inactions that he had no much time to engage the public through the media, which in the view of the PNC is a sign of disrespect to the entire nation. In addition, the president exhibited a significant lack of knowledge in most of the sectors where questions were asked. It must be noted that the president is expected to play a supervisory role on all the ministries, but clearly his responses towards the various questions that were asked indicated to all that he's either not fully in touch with issues at the various sectors, or he's just failing to appreciate his role as the chief supervisor of all sectors and ministries. So,
I thought you give the final. That was what we were requesting from them.
Okay, so the PNC wishes to communicate to the president to have an adequate preparation prior to the next engagement that he wishes to have with the public through such an important platform. Important. Okay. And the PNC is also entreating the president to apologize to the public for such an abysmal engagement. Yeah. That's signed by you.
That's the most important part.
You call it abysmal.
That's the most important part that we wanted to have. Now, I mean, the statements you read sums up everything, and so I'm not going to elaborate further. But it's important for us to appreciate the fact that in all jurisdictions, encounter with the press or the media is very key and very important. It is one area where individuals feel or are made to feel that they are in touch with practical governance and leadership. Over the past years, moving away from autocracy to democracy, one significant character or trait of autocracy is that leadership is sitting somewhere, and then the followers are also somewhere. And so all leadership does is to direct, send command, and there's no medium where feedback is given. What the leader wants is what he or she does, and that is autocracy. Now, when we decided to move to democracy, we are expecting, and it is important, we've been expecting that all that we can do is to have a platform where there will be some form of feedback, where the leader says, ABC is what I intend doing, or what I am doing, or what I have done. And then the feedback will come, and the feedback will say, okay, Mr. President, you are doing this for the purposes of us. This and this and this are our challenges because we are the receivers. And so we are giving you a feedback. There hasn't been any law that straightly binds any leader in this Fourth Republic to have a public encounter. And so individuals have come and they've decided to christen it the way they want to have it. Some leaders came and they said it is town hall meetings or town hall encounter. Others come and say meet the public. Others come and say meet the press or the media. And so they decide to do it as and when they pleases and as and when they feel that there's a need to do it. And so there's nothing that binds any leader or any president to do that. We are just doing it because we want to entrench democracy. The point I'm making here is that because there's no law that binds, in other words, no one is forcing anyone to do it. It is either I am doing it and I'm doing it right, or I'm not doing it at all. You don't come
and in the pretense of creating an impression that you want to deepen democracy, you do things abysmally. If there was, today I have seen a report coming from Daily Graphic. If there was a true meet the press, an encounter, government initiatives has put more money in people's pockets, says President Akufo-Addo. And indeed, those of us who followed the encounter, he made this categorically. If there was a true encounter, feedback that would have been given to the president on that moment is that, Mr. President, this is probably what you are perceiving, or this is what you intend. But the truth of the matter is that your policies are not putting money in our pockets. Unfortunately, because that encounter didn't take place, the president came to say what he perceives without getting a feedback as to what the realities are. The president came and then spent about an hour or so telling us what he has already prepared. Just after, the communications minister told us that they have about 70 questions. They've categorized the questions into sectors, and they have about 70 of the questions. And so they are going to, just when the minister ended making that submission, the president interjected and said that, well, we have a very limited time, so you should reduce the number, or you should have it in a particular period. Now, reality is, it ended up, from the 70, it ended up becoming 12. 12 questions were asked out of the 70. But mind you, the purpose of the encounter was to create a platform for individuals to rather communicate to the president. It wasn't the other way around. What the man did, or the president did, it was the same thing as going to parliament to go and give, State of the Nation's address. If it is the State of the Nation's address, we don't need that wasting of time. You know, the unfortunate thing is that this encounter will come with a budget. The taxpayers' money, we ask ourselves, whatever amount was allocated for that encounter, let's ask ourselves that the outcome and what happened on that day, does it merit even one peso being spent from the taxpayers' coffers? You get it? So clearly, the president did not meet the press. What he rather did was to give us the State of the Nation's address, which was not what we were expecting. The other thing is that out of these 12 questions that were asked, about half or more than half of it, the president was quick to say that he's referring them to ministers, the sector ministers. And I think one or two of the questions, he even indicated that that minister, the sector minister, was not available. That questions were not answered. If we were to have an encounter with the ministers, there shouldn't have been any need for us to have all of us to our attention to be taken to Flagstaff House thinking that we're going to have an encounter with the president. There was nothing like that. It was more of meet the ministers other than meeting the president. But quickly, one or two issues took my mind. The first one had to do with a question that talked about drones. Strangely, when we're talking of drones and we're expecting the president to have given some convincing answers, what he was quick to state was that he would prefer to invest in drones than to invest in guinea fowl. That's an insult. That was just an insult to all of us. I don't know what he meant by that. But what has guinea fowl got to do with drones? And what has guinea fowl got to do with the health sector? The president, I mean, it was more, I mean, forgive my words, but it was more of words coming from grassroots or foot soldier communicators of the NPP. I was not expecting the president to make such a question, to give such an answer. He also made reference to the free SHS in his State of the Nation's address. You know, that was, I'm talking of the press encounter that took place, which for me is like the State of the Nation's address. He was talking of free SHS and the fact that individuals have had the opportunity to go to school and all that. Look, I keep telling the president and the NPP government that, look, it is not the quantity that really matters. It is the quality. So now, let our boss, Patrick, do a search on current surveys and current assessment of Ghana's education. And all reports that are coming tells you that our quality education is falling. It's speedily falling. We are just talking about quantity and not making reference to quality. What is the essence of pushing everyone through for the sake of we want to push everyone through? After the person has gone through, when you become so irrelevant, mind you, there's nothing more dangerous than half-baked education. It is important that we know that, look, being ignorant, sometimes it is even more better to be ignorant than to be half-informed or half-educated. But finally, on this issue, on this encounter, because as I said, everything has been put in there. One guy from one of the media houses asked a question which had to do with the health sector, aside the drone. And as usual, he referred it to the minister. Now the minister comes in and says that, and the one who asked the question was reading from a document and said that this is an agreement that was ongoing and all that. The minister comes in. One, the president admitted that he had no idea of that agreement and that document that was being read by the guy asking the question. And so he's making reference to, he's referring it to the minister. The minister comes in and gives further information. And what the minister said was that that agreement is actually an agreement that was in existence. An agreement that started in the previous administration. Now, when he came in, he assessed it and he was asking for further information. Unfortunately, the partners, the outside partners to this agreement, failed to present those documents. Now, because they failed to present those documents, he decided to cancel the agreement. And I said to myself, an agreement that is supposed to bind Ghana and another country or another party outside this country, such an important agreement, a minister can abrogate it and will not give briefing to the president. It is very dangerous. A minister can decide that, look, this is an agreement that has been ongoing. I've come to it, I want to assess it, and then I realize that some individuals are not giving information that needs to be given, and so I've decided to take it off. And in all the briefings, the minister, since 2017 when the minister became minister, in all instances where he has had a chance to brief the president, are we saying that the minister decided not to brief the president on such an important agreement which he decided to cancel? All right? Now, the cancellation, we don't even know because he himself admitted that it was an agreement that was ongoing. Is it a cancellation that is leading to a judgment that no one is asking those questions? Is it also possible that the minister had actually been briefing the president, but just that the president forgot about it? That is also a question we need to ask. But finally, I think that most of the questions, even though the president just communicated that he didn't have time for the public, he wasn't in to have any question answer time, all he wanted to do was to present an already prepared speech, just to read it and go. There were one or two questions that came, which was, for me, was very good. And I think that it's a plus to the media reps that were there compared to last year's own. Okay, last year was really a mess. And so when one or two questions started coming in, I realized that at least this one seems to be more refined. And for that matter, I want to say a big congratulations to the rep that came from Unique FM, Cecil Wontumi or whatever. I think, yeah, Cecil Wontumi. He asked a very brilliant question with regards to the president always talking of having the China model in Ghana. He's always passionate about the Chinese model. Cecil made reference to population. That, look, the Chinese model, aside all other things, they have the advantage of the population. Okay. So what do we do with ours too? Do you hear the question, how the president answered the question? Total deviation from what the question was. Absolutely, his answer had nothing to do with that. And so I would just want to reiterate what the content of the PNC's press statement states, and to mention that, look, it will just be prudent for the president and the handlers of the presidency to come out and give a strong apology to all Ghanaians, simply because the last encounter, as far as we are concerned, it was just an insult to the populace and to Ghanaians.
Briefly, Mr. Batino.
Yeah, just sorry to take the microphone again, but as he was speaking, I just recalled part of the response of the health minister when he was attempting to assist the president, which I thought was such an abysmal remark from him. He actually mentioned that those people, the outside body that wanted to see the president, contacted him. They said they were coming with Bill Gates and other people, but they ended up coming without those people. And when he looked at what they had to present, he said, no, I'm not going to allow you to deceive Ghanaians. He used these words. Now, that was his assessment of something that he concluded was meant to deceive Ghanaians. As I was saying earlier, this is something that was running live. He is making a serious statement about an external group imputing motives. He's saying that they were coming to deceive Ghanaians. Those were his words. So again, as I was saying, these people are listening. They read and they get to know the content. He said, well, we have been having contact with your country. We have been having discussions with your various officials of your government. We came to present something. If you don't accept it, you don't accept it. But for you to say that to read meaning into it, and the word he used was deceive. I said, I'm not going to allow them to deceive Ghanaians. I thought that was very bad for our international relations and diplomacy. And again, one thing I didn't mention, which I should, is that it's a national security issue if the president doesn't know much of what is going on in the country. It's a national security issue. And if people who are listening and watching him get to know that, oh, they can actually cut deals and conclude things without his knowledge, we are in trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Batinam. Let's end with Honorable Gaba.
Thank you very much. I must say that I agree generally with all what my senior colleagues have said on this matter. The presidential media encounter, as we all know, is not new. This Fourth Republic has seen the presidential media encounter being carried out under different formats. All our presidents in this Fourth Republic have opened themselves up for media engagements. It helps deepen our democracy. It helps with the principles of transparency and accountability. But on this particular occasion, I agree with the review that many Ghanaians, including media practitioners, have put out. The reviews that have been put out in all sincerity are reviews that point to the fact that the president did not impress. Indeed, according to the Media Foundation for West Africa, they say that this is the worst media encounter in the history of our country. We have read the assessments of journalists like Manasseh Azuri Awuni, who has said that it was a disaster. Other journalists like Efia Pokua, Bernard Avle, Aku Banase, Moro Awudu, and many others. Indeed, all the civil society organizations who have assessed the president's performance publicly have said that they are not impressed. They were left totally disappointed. I believe that the disappointment comes from a number of reasons. First, the whole idea to change the format and for the first time ask that journalists should write down the areas of questioning. Very strange. Why would you ask journalists to write their area of questioning at the period of registration? You see, it suggests that you do not only want to give the president foreknowledge, you are also restricting the journalists. You see, journalists should have free hand to carry out their duties. It is even possible that whilst you are there at the event, statements that the president makes, even a question that has come, may necessitate another follow-up question. You should give journalists the freedom to carry out their duties. So that format is problematic, and I hope that it will be abandoned. And you see, what even makes the whole matter worrying is that you call this a presidential media encounter, and yet 80% of the time is spent on your presentation. You speaking to the journalists, engaging in a monologue of a sort. That is most disappointing. And you time the president's speech. The president spoke for more than 40 minutes. And then you leave journalists with only 15 questions. Over 70 journalists asking only 15 questions. Now, I must also make the point that I agree with all our colleagues around the table that we must all be deeply, deeply worried about our president's lack of appreciation of the issues, his lack of grasp, his clear lack of information on very basic and rudimentary matters. And why we should be very worried, Senna, is that if you look at the Ghanaian governance architecture, we operate an executive presidency. President Akufo-Addo is not a ceremonial president. We don't have a prime minister where you can have the ceremonial president focus on just ceremonial matters, the Independence Day events, and just sitting in states and receiving important dignitaries and just going with the pomp and pageantry and the flow and all of that, where the ceremonial president does not really have to care very much about the details of governance. The Ghanaian governance and constitutional architecture is different. If you look at Article 57, which talks about the president, Article 57 states, and I quote, "There shall be a president of the Republic of Ghana, who shall be the head of state and head of government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ghana." So Article 57 is very, very clear. In the Ghanaian context, the president is not only head of state, you are also head of government. That's why the framers of our constitution made the distinction and emphasized it. So the president is head of state, he is head of government, and commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. So you are not only President Akufo-Addo is not merely a head of state. He's not a ceremonial president. I have heard people say, the president has shown honesty. we shouldn't bother. That's why the ministers are paid. No. He's head of state. He's head of government. And he is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Now, Articles 58(1), 3 and 4 even gives us more clarity on what is expected of our president. Article 58(1) says, the executive authority of Ghana shall vest in the president and shall be exercised in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. 58(2) says, the executive authority of Ghana shall extend to the execution and maintenance of this constitution all laws made under or continued in force by this constitution. 58(3) stipulates, subject to the provision of this constitution, the functions conferred on the president by clause 1 of this article may be exercised by him either directly or through officers subordinate to him. Listen to clause 4. It says, except as otherwise provided in this constitution or by a law not inconsistent with this constitution, all executive acts of government shall be expressed to be taken in the name of the president. So, per the constitution that we operate now, apart from the Attorney General, who is the only ministerial position that the constitution provides, apart from the Attorney General, the president can decide that I want to be finance minister, I want to be education minister, I want to be health minister. He doesn't need. He can decide, really. He can decide. And remember that every executive action, every executive authority is derived from the president. So the president ought to know, especially very basic items like the Central Medical Stores fire and what has happened thereafter. The president must know. The president must be able to tell us. When you hear your president consistently say, I'm at a loss, where is the foreign minister? You have a flagship project like the Marine Drive project. Because the tourism minister is not there, it can't be answered. Then I'm very, very worried. I mean, a major scandal is brewing, this Oslo scandal. The president is asked, and he says, as for this question, the foreign minister will not allow me to answer. So where is the foreign minister? She should come and answer. And then after you have heard from the foreign minister, one side, you draw conclusions and say that this is just machinations of desperate politicians. Meanwhile, all the facts show that this whole scandal has led to the ministry pulling out of the transaction. It is not just a mere allegation without more. It's not just mere half and puff. It was not mischief. Indeed, your people had presented documents. They were going ahead with this transaction. It had gone beyond just mere expression of interest. Your own majority leader had said in Parliament that we ought to investigate this matter. But for the Speaker not following on and listening to the majority leader not agreeing with him, we will have had a committee by now looking into this matter and its fallout. And yet you have the president just having listened to one side. Any wonder that you are seeing the disarray, the free-for-all scandals, the total chaos in governance. So we have a crisis on our hands. We have a president who has no detail at all. I mean, I'm even being generous by saying that he has no detail, he's not paying attention to detail. Even just being on top of his brief, just appreciating the issues, he can't be bothered. The president looked so unprepared, he looked so disinterested. It's as though we are begging him to be president, as if he can't wait to be relieved of the position. And the consequences for governance, because when you are president of a nation, look, it's no mean portfolio. You determine whether we go to war or not. Lives are in your hands. The decisions that you make determine whether we survive or not, whether this republic is kept intact or not. So a president must, especially an executive president, as Article 57 and Article 58 provides, an executive president must be on top of his brief. Nobody is saying that he should be God and he should know everything and every little technical detail. But he should, we saw President Mahama. Everybody is missing President Mahama. From education, health, environment, science. Everybody is talking about it. Read the civil society organization assessments. At least he has fair knowledge. And you can tell that this is a president who also listens to other sides of a situation. Because if not, your ministers, your appointees will run rings around you. Because when they know that our president is not in charge, he doesn't care about the detail, will not even check, he's not using his national security apparatus, he's not using the intelligence agencies, and is not having a third eye and having other ears, listening to other voices, they will just do whatever they want. Look at how the health minister, for example, appears to have been exposed by what he said. Look at what the Zongo minister, what he said. Now videos have emerged that he totally misled the president. So how can you then assess your ministers? And already you have 111, the highest in our history. We are paying them. And if there cannot be a system, we cannot be assured of a president who is on top of the brief, who is able to assess from other independent sources whether what his ministers are telling him is accurate, is true. Where are we going? Okay. What will happen to our country if we continue this way? So we must send a clear message to the president that, please, as for the presidency, it's not, with all due respect, it's not just about, wearing the suit and partying and attending cocktails. And please, he must make time and read his brief. He must, national security briefings, are they going on or not? Does he listen? Does he pay attention? Is he talking to other sources so that this country can move forward? It's about the lives of 30 million people. It's about our destiny. It's about our collective progress. What we have all seen this week is most frightening indeed. And our president should remember that he is not a ceremonial president. Articles 57 and 58 is very clear. In Ghana, we operate an executive presidency who must be hands-on, who must show in-depth knowledge of the issues that affect us so that our people can have relief, our people can develop in freedom and justice. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. One message directed at you. Good morning, Senator, and your humble panelists. Let's help to redeem Ghana. Our education sector is deteriorating. Teacher education is becoming unattractive. Newly trained teachers, teacher trainees, among others, are suffering. These were not what we have been promised. We live to see what happens. Senator Nombo, I'd like to use your platform to console all newly trained teachers who are struggling to secure a national service which intends to deny us our automatic postings from GES. They should be calm at the appropriate time. We shall exercise our powers. And says, I wish all newly trained teachers and teacher trainees, including the good people of Tong, Central Tong, North Tong, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. I must commend Honorable Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, popularly known as Togbe, is it Wogbeji Alo? Wogbeji, for his purpose on the current saga, for his exposé on the current saga. You and your panelists are really doing very well. That's from Magboni Nicholas Kelvin.